Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about a new series that I'm going to start, and that this is about a project series which will involve the Spring Boot and React. So there was a lot of demand, there was a lot of comments in the previous few videos which I published for the Fullstack, Spring Boot and Angular tech stack. So people wanted to also know how to do these things using React. So we are going to understand, and we are going to implement a very simple project, not very simple, but it will involve some kind of complexity also, but not so much. Okay, so we will implement all those things using Spring Boot and React. So we will have a Spring Boot plus React project in this series, and I will start with very simpler things so that you get to understand it, and along the way we will try to add more and more things into it to understand more better. Okay, so let's understand what kind of project we are going to do. Okay, so if you see my full stack project, we have done the movie API, right? We built a movie API simply where we were doing various CRUD operations and authentication, authorization, and forgot password, and all lot of things. But here the scope will be increased with the once we get through the initial stages of the project. Okay, so what we are going to initially do, or what I have planned for this series, let's go through it. So here is, I hope you can see, so Spring Boot plus React project. Now we are going to build another kind of API. This is a book API. Okay, so here the standard stuff we are going to do, we are going to implement CRUD operations. We are going to do API calls with JSON and file handling. We will do both the multipart request and all the stuffs that we have already done in our backend course as well as in the full stack project. We will also implement the authentication and authorization. So initially it will be a simpler form of authentication and authorization which we will go through, but we will slowly move towards the JWT. Okay, then we will also implement pagination, filter and search both on backend and frontend side, so that how the pagination is done, how the filtering of the data is done, and how do we search the record. Okay, the global search, how we implement on the data that is there for us. Okay, and there are some extra stuffs which right now I don't want to disclose because some of them are planned, but there are many other stuffs that I am thinking to include, but I will see whether I have to include within this project, or we should have some other kind of project, and there I should integrate into it. So I don't want to just commit for now, but yeah, there will be some kind of good extra stuffs to integrate into here and learn more about it, which you will understand it. Okay, so these are the things we are going to do in this full stack React and Spring Boot project. I hope you will get a very better understanding of dealing with the Spring Boot and React project. Now the prerequisites I just wanted to mention. So let's write the prerequisites. So first thing is you should have a complete understanding of Java programming language. Okay, second, you should know about the Spring Boot, and you should have some experience, or you should have some confidence in building the projects in the Spring Boot. If you have learned Spring Boot and if you don't know how to build a complex projects in Spring Boot, you can check out this backend course here, or you can check out this full stack course here. Okay, both are equal. It's just up to you whether you just want to focus on backend or completely full stack. In this full stack, it will be Angular on the front end. Here in backend, we will just be dealing with the Spring Boot project. Okay, so that's up to you. Third, you should know JavaScript and TypeScript. Both you should know. So here in React, we will be actually using TS. Okay, we will not use JS. The reason behind is, first of all, industry standard. Again, in majority of the enterprise projects where React is being used, TypeScript is there, not JavaScript. And secondly, the IDE suggestions don't come that better when using JavaScript. So TypeScript helps in that respect, and it reduces the error. Okay, so you hopefully know about the JavaScript and TypeScript thing. So just learn learn either of them, but you should be comfortable with TypeScript. Okay. And fourth, I would say there is no as prerequisite. You should know some basics of Git and Docker. We will be using both of them as well as SQL. So we will be using Postgres. Okay, so we will in Docker basically we are going to use the Docker Compose files for running our Postgres, and Git I will share the code with you, and PostgreSQL this database we can use. So you can use MySQL also, it's fine, but it's up to you which kind of database or which kind of SQL provider you want to use. Okay, so this is the main thing that you should know, and you can just go through this complete Spring Boot project here for revisiting all the concepts. In case you don't know, I will try to cover, or I will try to explain all the things that we will be requiring or will be helpful in building the APIs in Spring Boot. Okay, and on React you should know basics there at least, though I will go through it. So I would say basics of React. Okay, even if you see in Angular, if you have followed this series, Angular frontend series, which was a frontend for this backend course. So I have asked that you should know Angular basics, but I have explained each and every step, the logical part of the frontend I have explained. Now the UI part I cannot explain, because UI we can just I can just copy paste from here and there. So I will be doing the same. Okay, so UI part I cannot develop because I'm not a good at UI, nor I am a UI engineer or a UI UX designer. So on front end, all the logic we will write on our own. That is for sure. And I will explain every kind of logic that we need to build. But if you wish to build a very beautiful looking UI, you can make some changes in the CSS related thing. Okay, so that is all that you need to know in the prerequisites before you jump into this Spring Boot plus React full stack project. Okay, so now I'll see you in the next video with the starting of this project, and we'll start building this full stack project, and we will learn alongside the complete backend to front end way to develop a project. And the main objective is not to build a very lengthy or very complicated project. The main objective is to get you familiar with various concepts on how to, or make you confident in building a full stack project using Spring Boot and React. So that is the primary objective. Okay, so I hope this project will be helpful for you if you are a student or an intern or just a fresher in some company. Okay, so let's see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now in this video we are going to start building our project. So first we will start a new backend project, and then once we at least build some kind of endpoints for our API, then we will proceed to begin with the React part. Okay, so if you are new here, please go through the channel, and there are a lot of content, explore it. And if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. And if you are already subscribing it, so please follow the new playlist that we have started, the Spring Boot React Project 2025. So you can bookmark this playlist, save this playlist, and please like the video also. So let's begin by starting our Spring Boot backend project. So let's go to the Spring Initializer. So we'll select Java as the language, Maven as the build project, the current stable version, and we will select we'll just say com.book API, or maybe like com.book.api. Artifact will be book API, and here we will say just like this. So package name will be com.book.api. Okay, packaging jar, and we will have Java 21. Okay, now in the dependencies we will select Lombok, we will select Docker Compose, and we will select web. Also we will be selecting Spring Security, and also we will be having the Spring Data JPA and maybe Postgres. Yeah, Postgres. Okay, so and one more dependency is there, validation. Okay, so these are the dependencies that we will be installing: Lombok, Docker Compose support, Spring Web, Spring Security, Spring Data JPA, PostgreSQL, and validation. In terms of security, we will deal with the complete security after we have built our code APIs. So initially we will not be dealing as such with it, or we will just have a basic security. So if you want, we can remove it also for now, because right now it is not required. So let's remove it anyway. And let's move towards the building the APIs with all these dependencies. Okay, then you can generate the project and open in your IntelliJ or Eclipse, whichever ID you want to. Okay, so I have extracted the project. Now I have opened my IntelliJ IDEA community edition. Now just click on open, go to the directory, and here I have this API. Let me reload the path. Okay, so first I have got my book API here. Select the inner folder, okay, in which this red tag is there. Okay, sorry, a black tag is there. Select this folder. Don't select this folder, outer folder. In case you are using Windows, in case you are using Mac or Linux, so you will directly get the project folder itself. But in Windows, you get project folder inside another folder. Okay, so if we click on OK, we'll get our project. So let it index and reload. Give it. Let's wait for some time for the project to get set up. Okay. So my project has got set up. If we go to pom.xml, so we can see our dependencies have come here: JPA, validation, web, Docker Compose, Postgres, and Lombok. Now, since we have used the Docker Compose dependency, so we don't need to install Postgres directly into our system. We can just use Docker Compose file. It gives Docker Compose.yaml file. It will auto run this file. All you need to do is you need to install Docker Desktop in your system. Okay, and just make sure that it's running in the background. Okay, so let me just open it for you. So if you see here, my Docker is running over here. As you can see, Docker Desktop is running in resource saver mode. So see, currently it is completely empty. No images are there. Okay, no container are running. So you can sign into the account also if you want. For now, let's continue with this. Now here we have to provide the credentials to the database, right? So if you have seen the previous backend course, in that we had to define all those things in the application properties file, right? Here also we have to define it here. I'll just open alongside to just show you. Okay, so if you see here, we have defined all the configuration related to the application and the database here, right? All the things that we required for our project. In the same way, we have to do it in our current project, but this time we will take a bit different approach, and we will go via an approach that is more practiced in the enterprises. Okay, so this is a better way. Even if you are developing a project in while the development phase of the project, this is the way which is preferred. So I would say adopt this way of configuring your all these properties. So what is that way? The way is known as by using environment variables. Okay, so first of all, we'll refactor this and make it as YML file. Okay, and we'll remove it. Also, we'll just take the help of here. So we need all these things. Mail content right now we don't need. In case we need later, we'll see. So we will just copy paste it here. Okay, now here since we are using PostgreSQL, so we will say PostgreSQL. Okay, and we will change the database name to bookdb, and we will change the default port of the Postgres is 5432. Username, password you can set up. Now before we set up all these things, there are a few things we need to set up. Okay, so here first thing is ports. Now in the ports, the port which is currently defined is a default port within the Docker container in which the PostgreSQL will run. But at what port we want the exposure of our Postgres, okay, so that we can access on our local system. So we have to define that port. So we will just write 5432 also, that in the Docker container as well as on our local system, both the Postgres should be accessible on 5432 port. Okay, now we have to pass these credentials, and whatever credentials we will pass here, we have to pass it here also in the username, password, and the URL. So the best way is to create a .env file or an environmental variable file. So we will do using that. So just say new file, say .env, and here we will do all those things. It's saying to install plugins. Let's see what plugins it offers. Okay, right now let's continue without it. I have not used the plugin, so let's continue it without it. So let's define our credentials here only first. So db username and equal to. So default username of the Postgres is Postgres. Then db password you can set up for yourself. So whatever password you feel you can give it. For simplicity, I'm giving simply 12345. Then comes db url. So db url is this one. We will just copy from here and we'll paste it here. Okay, and what else is required? So these are the main things that is required, correct? So this is the database properties that we have included in the .env file. Also in the git ignore, we have to exclude this file from pushing into the GitHub. Okay, so we have to specify .env. Okay, so this is how we do it. Just say env files. Okay, .env files. Now what we have to do is, now we have included it in the git ignore because we don't want to push the credentials to the GitHub. We don't want that to be visible. But when we are developing locally, all the credentials that we will be getting from our team or what we are setting up, we will include that in a .env. And if you have ever deployed something in production, or if you have idea about the production environment or a test environment, then you must have seen that we pass there are the options on the deployment platform, whether it's AWS or any cloud platform. Also they give the option to pass the environmental variables in a safer way. So that's the best practice that is done. But when we are developing on a local host, this is the way we should adopt. Okay, so whenever in the application.yml file, we don't have to make any changes. Okay, this is the main thing that we need to take care of. Now to pass these variables into our this compose.yml and application.yml, what we'll do is to pass it into here. Since we need to specify the database name, right? So here we should specify a database name also. So db dot name. So our database name is bookdb. Okay, so we will be passing something like, first we'll say dollar and then curly braces, and inside it we will write db name. Okay, similarly for password, we'll say dollar and just copy paste these variables, and same goes for here. Okay, so this is how we usually do. In fact, you can do for port also, but I'm just making you aware that this is how things you should do. Everything should be configurable like this, and the same way we have to do here also. So we'll just copy this thing from here and we'll paste here, and we'll copy this from here. URL also will be like this only. Okay, db underscore URL, correct. So this is how we have passed our environmental variables. Perfect. Now let's close these files. So these properties are done. Now we need to work with the book. We need to build the entities, right? So before we build the entity, let's check whether our application is working or not. So if our application is connected to the database, then it's fine. Now currently, as you can see, I don't have any images of Postgres or anything to run, but all these things will be taken care of by this compose.yml file. Okay, so you just have to come to this main method and just run this main method. So if everything is fine, we'll see that it is running. So as you can see, it is saying Postgres pulling. So it is pulling the Postgres image from the Docker Hub. So let's just wait for it to download and then configure the image, pass the credentials and run the container. Okay, so as you can see, the downloading is still going on. Here, if you scroll to the right, you'll see that the progress is there. Just give the permissions, whatever is required, and you can see without any exception, we have our everything has started up, right? Now, if you go to Docker container also, you can see images have come here, and in container has started. So this means that our configuration was perfect, right? So, and you can see the application has started on the port 8080, perfectly fine. So this is some of the best practice that we have adopted, and it worked completely fine. So now it's time to build the entities. So let's Let's first write some packages. Let's create some packages like entities, and we will create another package DTOs, another package will be repositories, and another package will be services, another will be exceptions, and finally we will have controllers. So these are the packages which we will be requiring, right? So first we will start with building our entities. Now our entity will be a book. Okay, now in the book there will be, we will first annotate this with the entity annotation to mark this as a Hibernate or JPA entity. Okay, and then we will require certain Lombok parameters. So we will have to have getter, we require a setter, we will require a toString, a noargs constructor, a allargs constructor, and a builder, so that we can construct the book object using builder patterns. Now first we need to define our primary key. So here we will define a primary key using the annotation ID, and we will write the field private long ISBN. So every book is represented by unique ISBN, so we can make it as a primary key. This time we can't auto generate it because ISBN is a particular number, so we will pass it this time, right? Another field we will require is private string title of the book. Next will be private string author. Now there can be multiple authors, but for now we are considering single author. Then we will have private string description. Okay, so basically about the book, what the book is about in a short summary maybe we can show, right? Then private string we will have next field as category. So to with what kind of category it belongs to, whether it is a sci-fi book, it is a fiction, it is drama, or some educational related math book, science book, something like that. Okay, we then need a price, so we will have a double, so double price. Then we will have private integer quantity, how much quantity of the book is available in the market or is published, or maybe something like available. Okay, then now we will also require a book cover, okay, to show it. So basically we require an image uploading part is there, right? So we will have a string field which will have book cover. Okay, we will store the name of the image here, and alongside we will also store its URL. Okay, so I will explain you how we are going to generate this URL, how we are going to get the name of this book cover image. Okay, everything. Now let's apply some database level validations. Okay, so first of all, since it's a column, so we will use a column annotation and we'll say nullable equal to false, means this field cannot be null. Okay, also we will apply a server side validation. So server side validation is not blank. For the string type it is not blank, and we can say message this field is required, something like this. Okay, so the same thing we will do it for all the string fields. Okay, now for the double and integer fields, what we are going to do is we will, the database level validation we obviously have to put it. For the user level validation we have to write as not null. Okay, because double and integer are classes and are basically the reference type, right? So here it should not be null, it should have some kind of value. So we will pass here value message this field is required, something like this. Okay, now why we are not writing any database level or user level validation on these two fields? So we want to keep it as optional. Okay, that's the reason we are not applying any kind of validation over here. If we get the value we will insert it, if we don't get the value it's fine. Okay, so here comes all the entity part. Now let's move to the DTO. Let's open it as such. Now book DTO. So there were some questions like I have seen in many comments that why we require a separate DTO class, why can't we not directly interact with this book class itself? So the reason is the separation of concerns. So what I means is this book is an entity which is mapped to a database table, right? Now the interaction between the database layer and the service layer should be different, and the interaction between the controller to that service layer should be different. So there has to be some kind of intermediary. Okay, and that's why we use the book DTO object, right? Also there are some, when we are working on a very complex project, so there are lots of like one to many or many to many, so some this kind of relationships are there between the tables. So in that case, what happens is while fetching the data, there is some kind of issue with regard to serialization, and actually the fetching is done in a very recursively, it is infinitely being done. So to avoid that kind of scenarios also, we use book, we use the DTO objects, which are the plain Java object for, and act as a intermediary between the controller, which is basically you can say the user, and the controller layer and the database layer. So that is the separation of concern we need to maintain. Now here we just need to get the Lombok things. So we'll get the Lombok, and same all the fields we have to write again. ISBN. Let me just copy it. Why to write each and every field? Just remove this column annotation because this is the database level validation and this is not an entity. So we don't need database level validation here. Now another question you might ask is why we are putting this user level validation on DTO field also. We have already put over the book. Why we are putting here? So as I said, book DTO class is used to interact between the controller and the service layer, and the book entity is directly interacting with the database thing, right? Now controller will expect a request body of book DTO type, and it will pass on to the service layer. In the service, you will pass the values around from book DTO to book object. Now there can be instance when you're applying the business logic on the service layer, some fields may skip the validation because you have applied the validation but on the DTO layer, but while passing to the book, the value didn't got passed. Maybe you have applied if else or some kind of condition, and somehow the null value got passed over from book DTO to book field, the corresponding field in the book class. So to avoid this kind of situation, we generally, it is a good practice that we apply the validation on the book DTO class as well as on the book class. Okay, so that ensures the complete safety that no null values or all the required values we always get, and those values are valid, right? So these are the things. Now next we will build a repository. So for it we'll require an interface. So we will have book repository. So we will say extends JPA repository. Here we will pass book and the primary keys of the type long. Okay, so this is done, and we will define the services finally. So it will also be a interface. So book service. Now in the book service there are 4 to 5 methods, the standard CRUD operations which we will do. So it is book DTO, add book. It will involve two things. First is book DTO, obviously. Second will be a multipart file. So multipart file. So these two things are required. Then we will have another book DTO and get book. Okay, so we just need to pass a ISBN here. Then we will have list of book DTO and get all books, and then we will have an update method. So we will say update book. Here we have to pass book ISBN, and we have to pass the book DTO object, the body, and obviously the multipart again, because we may want to modify the existing book cover also. And finally a delete book thing, which will pass a string. Okay, simply a message, right? So these are the methods that we will be implementing, and there will be one more interface which will be a file service. Okay, now this file service interface is required for handling the upload and download of the files. So let's also define the method for it. Now if you don't know about these things, I would highly recommend you to go to the channel and watch this backend course, right? I have explained in detail about all the things there, about the file upload, why, how we do it, what are the logic behind it. We will cover the logic here also, but if you are confused why we are using a file service interface, why we are doing this, then more broad level explanation I have given in that particular video on backend course, right? So we will have a file upload file method, in which we will pass the path in which the path on which we want to upload the file, and we will pass the file. And second thing is input stream. So this will get the resource file. So we will say get resource file. So we need to tell the path from where to extract the file and what is the file name on that path. Okay, now the first method actually throws IO exception. Okay, and second method also throws file not found exception basically. So we will, okay, we can conclude from here, file not found exception. Fine. So these are the interfaces that we have already defined. So we have in this video we have covered book entity, we have built the entity, we have defined the book DTO, we have defined the methods for our book service for doing the CRUD operations, and we have wrote the method for our file upload and download thing. Now we will start with implementation of all these things from the next video. I hope you have understood the concept which is required. So I hope you have got a new idea about this env file things. Maybe some of you already know about it, but for some of you it may be a new thing. So this is a standard way to do things, and we have implemented all these things. We have at least started our project and we have started to build the foundation of it. In the next video, we will implement all the service layer methods, and I will explain all the methods and the logic behind it in detail. So don't worry about that. You will get complete explanation whether we are building the backend or whether we are building the front end. Okay, so that's all for this video. Please do like the video, share with more like-minded people, and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed. So I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in the previous video, we have set up the Spring Boot project. We have set up our database, Docker Compose with environment variables, and we have wrote our entities. So from here, we will start implementing the interfaces that we defined. We have defined yet. Okay. So before moving on, please subscribe to the channel. If you are new here, we are having this new series, Spring Boot React Project 2025. So this is an exciting series which will help you give the confidence in building the full stack project using Spring Boot as a backend and React as a frontend. So do subscribe to the channel for more such content and like the video if you are enjoying the content. So let's move on to the implementation of our interface. So we will start with the file service interface. So let's write a class for implementation of the interface. We'll say file service implementation. Okay, and this class will implement file service, and then we will implement the interfaces. Okay, and also we will annotate it with the service annotation. Now in the uploading of the file, what we will get is we will get a path where we want to upload the file and the file itself. Now where do we need to store the file? So we can store the file in the cloud storage if you are connected to the cloud, or we can store on our we can store the file on our server. Okay, so here we will store the file on our server, but in case we are dealing with the cloud like AWS or any other storage services, so in that case we can use their APIs to store the file, okay, to upload the file or to get the file, right? So here what we will do is we want that on this path the file should be stored. Okay, so on this path we will have a folder which will have our uploaded files there. Why? Because when we deploy the code, this whole thing get deployed, right? So in that sense, we are uploading the file on a server, right? It is our local server, but when we do it in the production, it is a bit differently we do. So we will learn about that also later, but for now on our local server, we need to define some kind of folder on our file, right? Now there are two ways we can do this. The first is we can directly right click on here and we can create a folder, and second is we can manually do the configuration. Okay, we can configure everything so that when we run our application, those things are taken care of. So what we will do is we will go to the application.yml file, and here we will decide the name of our folder. Okay, so we will say project.images. Okay, and the folder name will be images slash. Okay, so this is how we define that in which folder we want to store our file. This is the path name we are defining. Okay, now we will use this path in our service layer of the book service implementation when we will be uploading the file. Okay, when we will be writing the use case, okay, for that. So that much work is done. Now what we need to do is we have the path which we will get from the book service implementation. Okay, then we will be doing that, and we will get the file. So we have to take care of the uploading part here, right? So the first thing we need for uploading the file is the file name. Okay, so we will say string file name equal to, now to get the file name we have a method that is get original file name. Okay, so this method gives us the actual name of the file. Next is we need the actual path of the file. So this path only is the path which is defined on the server, but the actual path to the file is what we require. So we will say file path is equal to path plus file dot separator plus file name. So this is the actual path on which our file will be, right? So this is how we have got the file name. This is we have got the actual file path where our file will be, and then we will create the folder if it does not exist. So which folder? The folder will be this one, images folder. Okay, where we have to put our files. So how we do it? We say file from file.io, file f equal to new file, and we will pass the path. Okay, so this will construct a new file in this path. Okay, a new file object first will pass, and then we check that if this file exists. Okay, if this path exists or not. If it does not exist, then on this path create the folder f.mkdir. Mkdir, you know, make directory. So it will create a new directory which is the same as images. So images currently is not there. So when we will be uploading the file for the first time, and when it will check for it, so it will see that the file does not exist. So it will create the images directory for us, right? Once this directory is created and we have defined the path to that, we have defined the complete path for that. So what we require is we need to copy file to the path. Now I will say, what do you mean by copy file to the path? So basically what I mean is the file which we receive from, whether from the server you pass it, from the client side, basically you pass it out from Postman, whatever, whether your client is Postman, React, Angular, from whichever you are uploading a file, right? The file does not go the way as you upload. It is converted into a stream of bytes. So it goes like that. So first we are defining a path where it will be something like this. Okay, our images directory will be there, and in that images directory, suppose you have your file name is myfile.txt. Okay, so this will be created. This will be already existing. Okay, if it is so inside this folder, this file will be there and it will be empty. Now you have to copy the content from the actual file. So the file which you have got, you have to actually copy the content. So I can say copy file content. So how you copy? You use the files java.nio.file. Okay, so files.copy, you will pass file.get input stream. So as I said, we get as a stream of bytes. So this will get the content and we will pass the paths. So it takes something like paths.get, and we will pass the actual file path. So this is how we actually pass the file. So if you check this paths, this get method converts a path string or a sequence of strings that when joined to form a path string. Okay, so basically it will set up the path that you are defining here using the folder and the file name, and using file.input get input stream, because the file from the client to server comes in the form of stream of bytes. So we will have the input stream, because for us it is the input, right? And what we will return? We will return simply the file name. So we will return the file name. Okay, that's whole point that we are going to. Now next is to get the actual resource file. Okay, so now we want to get the resource file. Now what we know that our file exists on this path, right? This images slash my file.txt. This is our actual file path where our file is existing. We want to get this file. So first we need to construct the path to that file. So we will say string full path equal to path plus file dot separator plus file name. Okay. So first we construct the full path, and then simply we require an input stream. Okay. So we will say file input stream, and we will pass the path. So what it does is, first we are defining the path where our file is, using the server path which is given by the service layer from book service implementation. Okay, and we have constructed the full path, and then what we have done is, this is the file input stream. Okay, so it says it creates a file input stream by opening a connection to an actual file, the file named by the path name in the file system. Okay, so when we pass the path to this file input stream, it goes to this path of the file, which is basically this. It will go to my file.txt, and it will copy all the content from that file, and it will send you as an input stream. So you have to, so there is a conversion in between which happens. Okay, so when we will be developing the React side of the project, you will understand it more better, how we extract those, how we deal with this. Okay, so this is how we have defined it. Now service layer we have done, but how do we know that whether this is correct or not? So for that we will define a controller to test out. Okay, so we will say file controller at rest controller, and we will define a request mapping, a base URL, base endpoint. So let's say API/v1/file. Okay, now here we will say private final file service, and we will use constructor injection. First thing will be post mapping for upload of the file. So I will say upload. Okay, so we will say public response entity of type string upload file, and we'll say request part, and it will be multipart file. It will throw exception because the method that we will use also throws exception. Now we will say file service dot, we will call this upload file method, and here we have to pass two things. First we have to pass the path, and we have to pass the file. Now from where we will get the path for now? So we need the access to this thing, right? This value. So how do we get access? We say private string path, and to get the access from application.yml, we'll say value, and in the curly brackets we write project.images. Is it correct? Project.images. Okay, perfect. So this is how we are getting the actual path from that file. Okay, so we just need this thing, okay, this value. So to define that, what is the name of the folder in which you want to keep the files? Okay, it will automatically construct the path for you, and then you will get the uploaded file name, correct? And then you simply have to return response entity of file uploaded is uploaded file. Perfect. So this is the endpoint we have defined for the uploading of the file. Now to get the uploaded file, we'll say get mapping, and then we have to pass here two things actually. First we will pass value, which is nothing but the actual name of the file. So we will pass file name, and second we have to define what it produces. Okay, so it can be various things that we are, that's why the file can be of different type. Okay, so since we are using images here, we will be using PNG images. Okay, so we will say image. You can see here we have JPEG image, GIF, PNG, so any kind of image type you can use. Okay, so we will be using PNG for now, and we will define another endpoint of type void get resource at path variable string file name, and we will require a HTTP servlet response. Okay, these things mostly I've covered in my backend course, but so what is the purpose of it? I'll explain each and everything. Okay, now we have to get the file. Now what does the file response, or what does the file service gives us? So file service says file service dot, if we say get resource, it requires a path, so we will pass the path. It requires a file name, so we will pass the file. Now in return, what it is giving us? It is giving us a input stream. Now do we want this input stream to be passed to the client? No, this input stream is good for the server. On the server side it is good, okay, but for the client side it actually needs a file, so we need to convert that. So what we will say that to that response dot set content type. Now we have to define what kind of response, the content type of the response basically. So we will say media type dot image png value. This is the response content type, and then we will simply say stream utils dot copy resource file, and then response dot get output stream. Okay, so we are using a function class which will copy all the content from the resource file as a output stream. Okay, all the content to it, and this will make the file in the png format. Okay, this will display to the user as a png file. And since we also need to copy the content, so we are defining that this is our resource file, this is our file where you have to put all to provide us an output stream. Okay, so this is how we are going to extract the file. Now let's run our server and test this. Okay, so our things have started, and if you see here, the table is also created, but we currently are not concerned about this table. We are concerned whether our file service is running fine or not. So we will open our Postman. So let's open our Postman. Okay, so we will use HTTP localhost 8080/API/v1/file/upload. Okay, so this is how we are doing it. So if you see here, API/v1/file/upload, and this is a post mapping. So it is a post request we are doing. Now what kind of body we are sending? So it is a kind of form data where we have to send in a key value pair. So we have to send a file. So key will be file. Here you can select text or file. Okay, so select file and no need for type. Okay, so here you have to select file, and then you have to select files. So let me select a file. Okay, so I've selected a file named c2.png. Okay, now if I upload it, what you will see is a new folder getting created here, images which we have defined in the configuration, and the file with the same name, okay, c2.png is getting uploaded there. So if I this, we are getting the file name, see 200/OK, file uploaded is c2.png. Now if we go here, we see that images folder is there and c2.png is there. If we double click on it, we are getting the image. Now if we want to download the image, so we have to pass / and the file name. Okay, so let's go to the Postman, then let's create another request. This time I'll just copy paste the request and pass the file name, which is c2.png. It is a get request. If I click and it requires anything, yeah, it requires a path variable file name. So we have already passed the file name. Okay, perfect. Now if we send, so see, we are getting a file. If you do the same over here, you'll see that we are getting the file as a display, right? So you can display the file, right, like this, right? So this is the way how we are going to implement the files. Okay, we are going to handle the file. So we have defined the file service implementations for uploading and getting the resource file, and we have checked using the controller that everything works perfectly, right? So once again, let me give you a summary of what we have done. So in the upload file, we have passed the path and we are getting the file. Now we are getting the name of the file using the get original name, and then we are setting up the file path. Okay, then we are using this whole code. We are trying to generate we are trying to create a directory if it does not exist. So what will be the name of the directory? We have already defined here. it is the name images. You can name it anything, whatever you want. Even you can name this property whatever you want. Okay, this is the custom property. After that, what we are doing is we are saying files.copy, copy the file path. Okay, so we are getting the file content to the in the form of the stream of bytes, and we are copying it. Where we are copying it? We are copying on the path that we have constructed. So this is the path we have constructed. So example, images c2.png was constructed first, and then the content which was received in the form of the input stream, we copied using this into this empty file. Okay, so first empty file is constructed first on this in the images directory, and then the content of that file is copied to that empty file. So remember this. To get the file, we need the path to that particular file, and once we get the path, we on that path we need the file name. So we are providing the path and we are providing the name. So using this, we have constructed the complete path, full path, and by passing the full path to the file input stream, we have got the input stream, or we have got the stream of file. Now in controller, what we have done is we have defined the actual path where we want to do it. Okay, so here we are defining the path on our actual project server only locally. So we have done this way. If it would have been the cloud, then there would be another way or API provided by AWS or Azure or maybe other storage services. So we have to do that way. Okay, sometime later we will try to discuss those things also, but for now we are taking the route of file handling using our local directories. Okay, now what we are doing is we are simply accepting a multipart file and uploading it, and when we want to fetch the content, so what we are doing is we are calling the resource file. So we are getting an input stream, but we don't need, but on the client side we can't display the input stream because it is in non-readable format for the user. So to convert that to the readable format, we are defining the content type that convert that we want a PNG file, and we are copying the content to this resource file. Basically, we are copying to the response. So that's why output stream. We are showing the output. Okay, we are getting the input and we want to show the output. So we are using the output stream. So that's how we have defined and handled the file service things. Now, how to use this while we save the content of the book? Because if you see here, we require this book cover. Now this book cover is basically an image, right? So how we will do that along with so many fields, this we will discuss in the next video. So hopefully you have understood about these things. Go once and twice again, repeat in this video to understand it more clearly, and I hope you have got an idea of how we can upload the file and get the content of the file, right? So in the next one we will be implementing the book service interface. So we have defined these 5 methods, so we will start to implement these things one by one. Okay, also please subscribe to the channel, save this playlist if you want to learn about the full stack React project development, and we have just started the series, so you can get started with it. Hope you find the content very interesting. So stay tuned for more such interesting content. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your feedback in the comments. So I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in the last video we have discussed about how we have discussed about building the file handling logic. Okay, so today we will start with the operations. We will implement the methods for the book service. Okay, so before we get started, please subscribe to the channel here. If you are new, we are having a new playlist, a new series going on, which is Spring Boot React Project 2025. So you can learn a lot about building a full stack application using Spring Boot as a backend and React as a frontend. Also, there are more series on the channel like Angular, MongoDB, Kotlin, and the backend course. You can explore these playlists also. And if you like the content, please subscribe and press the like button and share the video with more such people. So let's get back to our objective of today's video. So first we need to implement all these methods implement all these methods. So let's create a implementation class. So we'll say book service impl, and simply we will implement book service. Okay, and then we will just implement it. Now for this we will require a book repository. So let's bring the book repository here. So book repository. Okay, now let's implement the add book method. Now when we are talking about add book method, we are getting the two things. First thing is a DTO object, and second thing is a file, right? So the first thing you need to do is that we need to upload this file first. Why we need to upload the file? Because if you go to this book class, we are in the database, we are saving the book cover, which is basically the name of the image name. Okay, the image name and the book cover URL, which is basically the image URL. Okay, so these two things we are saving on the database, and to get these two things we will require first to upload the image. So what we will do is we will save the file here. Now how do we save the file? To save the file, or basically to upload the file, we need the file service. So that also we need to bring it here. So let's bring first that here. Okay, so file service and file service. Okay, so we have bought these two. Now if you go to file service implementation, you will see that there is an upload method. This upload method takes a path and it takes a file. Okay, so basically we have to give the path and the file to it, right? So here we have not defined the path, so we will first define the path. So let's define the path. Now where we have actually defined the path, we have defined the path in application.yml file, this project.images. It has this path images slash. Okay, so we have to get this path. So how do we get this path? We will use the annotation at value, and it comes from this one, org.springframework.beans.factory.annotation.value. Okay, so here we will say dollars, in curly braces we will just write project dot what we have here, project dot images. So project dot images. Okay, and simply we will say private string path. So this path variable will get the value from the application properties. Okay, and yes, so this much is fine for now. Now what we are going to do is to upload the file. Now since we are going to upload the file, so first we need to check whether the file exists or not exists, because if the file already exists there, so we cannot override it. We will say to the user that file exists, please upload another file. Okay, so we will say if, now we will use files. Files comes from java.nio.file. so files.exists. Okay, so files.exists. and how do we check? So we have to first give the path to it and the file name to it on which the file is there. So we will say paths, which comes again from the same java.nio.file.get. Now we have to pass URI, which is a file path, the actual file path. So the actual file path we are getting from this variable. So we will say path, and then it will be separated by file.separator, and then finally we also need to pass the file name, okay, to search for the file. So we will say file.get original file name. So if the file exists, then we will just say throw new file. There is one file exist exception, file already exists exception. Yeah, and we can just say file already exists, please give another file. Perfect. So we have to also throw method signature, right? This one. Now what we have to do is, if we don't get any exception, okay, so it means that file don't exist already, so we have to upload the file. So to upload the file, we will just simply call file service dot upload, and we have to pass the path and we will pass the file. Now what this actually we can simply pass a generalized parent IO exception. Okay, this is a parent class for this also, so we can just pass IO exception because this method also throws the exception. So if you go to file service, you see that we are returning the file name. So we will get this file name and we will say uploaded file name. Okay, so we have got uploaded file name. Now we need to construct the URL. So how do we construct the URL? So we will construct the URL which is required for, basically it is a book cover URL. Okay, so the name of the file we have already got, file.get original name. We will get that these two fields we require. Okay, basically, so this we are done with. This we have to construct the URL. So how do we construct the URL? Now we need some base URL. Okay, the base URL on which our server is running. Okay, so we will just say construct base and we'll say URL. Now for now I'm just giving it like this only, localhost 8080. Okay, you can change it or you can maybe put it into the environment file. Okay, wait, so let's put it basically base URL equal to, and let's copy this and let's put it into this .env file. Okay, and here what we will do is we will simply use a variable. So I'll say base underscore URL. Here also we need to change to underscore. Okay, so this is how we have passed the URL. So now we will, and we need to fetch that thing also. So we will again do the same value and dollar base.url private string base URL. Okay, so we will get the base URL. Now we will say base URL plus slash. Now how do you know on after base URL what endpoint you need to pass here? So for that purpose, in the last video we have constructed this controller, and if you remember, this method was being used for getting the file name on the client side. Okay, so this method was giving us a URL, and using this URL we were able to fetch the file, or we were able to serve the file on the client. So this is the same we will be doing. So let's copy this here and let's copy this, and slash is, it is file name, so we have to pass the file name. File name will come, so we will pass the uploaded file name. Okay, so this much is done. Now next what we have to do is, now when you are sending the book DTO object from the client side, okay, whether it is a React or anything you are sending, so these two fields you don't need to send, right? This book cover and book cover URL, these two fields will be always be null when the book DTO object comes. So before we convert this book DTO to book object, we have to set the value. So we will say book DTO dot set book cover, and book cover will be uploaded file, whereas book DTO dot set book cover URL, it will be book cover URL you pass. Okay, once this is done, now we will convert our book DTO object to our book. Okay, now for converting the object from book to book DTO and book DTO to book, we need a methods. Okay, so let's define such methods from where we can do these things. Okay, let's define these private methods. There are model mappers or external libraries also which you can use, but here it is very simple to do things, so we will just define our method. It is more easier. Okay, so first we will define book DTO and we will say convert to book DTO. Okay, and we will get a book object. So how we will do that? We will say book DTO dot builder. We will use the builder pattern, and then we have to define ISBN book dot get ISBN, then title book dot get title, then author book dot get author, then price book dot get price, then description book dot get description, category book dot get category, then quantity book dot get quantity, then book cover, so book dot get book cover, and finally book cover URL, which is book dot get book cover URL, and finally we will write build. Okay, so this is as simple as that. Similarly, we will just copy paste this here and just rename the methods. Okay, book DTO, and to rename this, okay, so to rename this variable, just right click on it rename, and just press enter. Okay, so we have easily wrote the two private methods which will help us in converting from the entity to DTO and from DTO to entity. Okay, now we need the book object because we want to save it into the database. So we will say book equal to first convert, so convert to book DTO, right? Now we will use book repository to save the method, to save this book object, and it will give us the saved book. And finally in the return we will say convert to book DTO and we will pass saved book. Okay, so this is a very simple way of how we can add the book. Now in the same way we have to do for get book and get all books. So we will just simply here do book repository dot find by ID. So we'll say find by ID. We'll pass the ISBN number and we'll say or else throw. Okay, for now we will write a runtime exception, book not found with ISBN this. Okay, perfect. Let's close this. Okay, and it will return you the book object if it finds it. If you get the book object, then simply convert it to book DTO and return it. So this is as simple. So this find by ID basically gives you an optional. Now for getting all books, so book repository dot find all is the method for it. It simply returns you the list. Now if there are books, then there will be a list of book objects, and if there are no books, then you will receive an empty list. So what you have to do here a bit differently, you have to do it like this, books dot stream, and then you have to map. Now for each object of the book, so for each object of the book you have to call the function this. Okay, and then you have to convert it to a list. Now if you see here, if you hover over this yellow line, you will see it says replace lambda with method reference. So you can use the method reference as a shorthand, right? So this is a more easier way to get all the books. So we have defined these three methods for now. Now let's build a controller and let's test it out. So let's build a book controller. Okay, so at rest controller, at request mapping, let's give a base URL api/v1/books. For this we will require book service here, so private final book service. Okay, now let's first define a post mapping. So post mapping is basically for adding the book. So we will define a add book endpoint. We will say public response entity, and it will simply return a book DTO and add book. Normally when we do a REST API call, and if you have to pass an object, we directly pass that object as part of a request body. But since here we have to handle the files also, so we have to basically send it as a part of a request part. Okay, basically a multi-part request it is. The request is divided into multiple parts basically. So we'll say request part, and here we have to pass the JSON in the string format. Okay, we will be receiving in the string format. So book DTO JSON. And second thing also maybe request part. Here we can just say like something like whether this file is required or not. Okay, so for now I'm saying false because someone may want to give the book URL, or maybe not. If it is not available, the image is not available to provide. So in that case, let's make the file as optional. Okay, so we'll say multipart file. Okay, and this will throw exception, IO exception, because the method which we are going to call, it will throw the IO exception. Okay, now before doing anything, first the main part is we are getting this JSON in a string format. So we have to convert it into a book object, book DTO object basic. So for that we will have to define a private method again. So we will define a private method which will return us the book DTO object. We will say get book DTO, and we will say we have the string book DTO JSON. Okay, now let's first create a new object of book DTO. Okay, now to convert the JSON which is in the string format to the JSON, which is to a Java object, we need something known as object mapper. So object mapper is provided by Spring only. Basically, it's a Jackson. So okay, which is included in the Spring Boot dependencies, Spring Boot web dependency. Okay, so we create a object of this object mapper, and we will say try catch because it may throw an exception. So let's handle that also. So we will simply say object mapper dot read value has a read value. We will pass that what value we have to read. So we have to read the value of the JSON which is in the string format, and we have to convert this value. And what is the reference for reading this value? So reference to read this value is bookDTO class. So bookDTO dot class. Okay, and here in the catch we can get a JSON processing exception. So JSON processing exception, and we will simply log it. We can simply log it. Okay, so we will use SL4J. Okay, SL4J.info exception in converting string to JSON. Okay, e dot get message simply, and we will just return bookDTO object. Okay, so this is, we have wrote a method to convert a JSON in the string format to a Java object. Now before we call the method which adds the book, we first have to check whether file we have received or not. So first we'll say that whether file is empty. So if file is empty, we will say file equal to null. Okay, and then simply we will first convert using getDTO object. We will pass this stringify JSON which we are receiving from client to convert into actual Java object. Okay, and then we will simply return a response entity dot status. Status will be HTTP status dot created dot body. So body will be just calling book service dot add book. We have to pass bookDTO and we have to pass file. Okay, so this is as simple as it. Perfect. So here everything is, we have implemented all the things here. Perfect. Let's write the methods for get methods for getting the books also. So we will say get mapping slash all books, public response entity, a list of bookDTO get all books, and return a response entity dot okay, and call the book service method get all books. Okay, as simple as that. And finally get book by ID. So get book and pass the ISBN. Okay, and response entity, it will give you bookDTO and it will have get book, and here we have to pass the path variable. Path variable will be long ISBN, and simply again we will return response entity dot okay, book service dot get book ISBN. Okay, so this is as simple as that. So we have perfectly implemented these three methods, and at least logically we have wrote the logic here and we have defined the controllers for them. So let's first see whether these things work or not. Okay, so let's run our application first and let's see whether our application is working fine or not. Remember that before running the application, start your Docker application first. Okay, otherwise your application may fail to start. Okay, mine has failed to start because what's the problem? Yeah. Okay. Book service I have not annotated. Oh no. My Docker service is started. Don't worry. This service annotation I have not put. My bad. Let me check. Here we have, I think, put it. Okay, only on this service we have not put. Okay. So now if you see, our application is starting perfectly. Okay, so it has started successfully. Now let's open our Postman also and let's test it out. So okay, so we have already tested for our files. Now let's create a post request. Let's use the previous URL only. You have to say books slash add book. Okay, so I hope I'm correct here. Let's go to book controller. So API slash v1 slash books, API slash v1 slash books slash add book. Okay, perfect. Now we have to, in the body, you see, we have to use request part. Okay, multi-part request. So for that you will choose form data. Okay, in form data what you will do, you will have to pass key, and then here you will get an option whether you have to select text or file. So first key is the key will be book detail JSON. So exactly copy paste this key as it is. Okay, this key and this variable should be exactly same. Okay, remember that. Here just select text, and here we have to pass in the JSON format we have to pass. So how do we do that? Come to IntelliJ, because we have to write the JSON actually in the scratches and console. If you see here, so just right click on it, new scratch file, and create a JSON file. Okay, here we will first write all the things. So ISBN, we will construct an object. So suppose I get ISBN as this. Okay, and then all the things we have to construct. So just wait, we will say next is ISBN, then title. So let's consider the brief history of time. Okay, then author Stephen Hawking. Okay, next is description. Okay, description. So in description we will just say book explains about the origin and fate of the universe. Next we have category. So we will pass the category will be as popular science, we can say. Then we will say next is price. So price is say $20. Okay, or price is in double, so let's just make it 20.25. Then next is quantity say 100. Okay, and last is book cover and book URL, which we are not passing. Okay, which we will not pass. No need to pass book cover and book URL. As you can see here also, we have not put any validation on them. And if you say over book detail also, we have not put any validation. It is the same reason, because we don't want to pass it through the values through this, because we are constructing the values for them in the service implementation. Now just copy this JSON and paste it over the value here. So it will go like this. Okay, and here in the next field we have to pass the file. So file name is file only. So we will say file. Here we will get the option of text and file, so we'll select file. Okay, so we will select the file. So I have this brief history of time. So let's select this file. So if we select these files, now we have a JSON data in the string format, because as you can see it accepts a text. So text is a kind of a string. We are sending a file. So when we send these two things on this endpoint, what will happen is we will have a file upload here. So in the last video, since we have already created the folder images here, and we have uploaded one file to test whether our upload file is working or not. So it was working perfectly. You will now see the book cover URL here, and in the database also you will see the same. So let's do it. So if we send it and we get an error, okay, fine. Let's see what the error is. Maybe something has gone wrong. Book identifier of entity must be manually assigned before calling persist. Okay, so actually we were getting the error, as you can see here. So the error messages identifier of entity, this must be manually assigned before calling persist. So what it means that somehow the book object that we are saving here in the book service, if you see, the ID was getting null. So if you see here, you can see ISBN was getting null here. Okay, I tried to log and check out. So we are doing very silly mistake. Here we were calling the method, but we were not assigning the values. Okay, so because of that, so we have to actually assign the values. I forgot to assign the value here. Now if you assign the value here, book detail will get the actual object, and then we have to pass the book detail. Otherwise previously it was passing the empty object. Okay, so now if you run the server, and our file upload was working actually, so that is at least confirmed. So now if you run the server, you will see that it will be working up. Okay, so the server is running. Let's clear it all. How to clear it? Fine, no problem. So the same we have wrote here, all the data here in the text format, and we have uploaded the file here. The endpoint is here. So now let's add the book. So if we add the book now, you see here we are getting all the things. Okay, and the title, the author, everything. And if you see here, we are getting the book cover URL also. Now if you copy this URL, go to the Google and paste here. Okay, how it not pasted? Let's copy the URL, paste here. As you can see, we are getting the file. Okay, and this is what exactly we want, because on when we will be developing the React part of this project, so there we will need the image. So how do we fetch the image? We will require this URL. So that's why it's important. Okay, now time to do some more changes. So let's test it out with the get book. So let's copy this ISBN and let's change it to getbook slash ISBN, and if we send this, okay, we are getting it perfectly. And if we say all books, then we are getting in a list format. So our code is working perfectly fine. Now we are remaining with the last two methods, which we will cover in the next video. So for this, you just go through the video, you just go through the code. If anything you have not understood the reason behind it or the logic part of it, definitely post a question in the comment. I will try to answer your queries. Okay, so I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now in this video we are going to cover the remaining of our APIs and we will build the logic for them. So before getting started, please subscribe to the channel as we are continuing our Spring Boot React full stack project series, and we are going at a good pace for now, right? So please subscribe to the channel, and if you like the content, then please press the like button, share it with more and more people, and let's begin by completing our update and delete book APIs. Okay, so in the update book API, so what we have to do is we are going to update the book. Now before we update, we need to first check whether the book is available or not. Okay, so how do we check that? We say book repository dot find by ID. Okay, we will pass the ISBN number and then we will say or else throw, and we will throw the runtime exception, new runtime exception. Here we will just write book not found with ISBN and we'll say and pass the ISBN. Okay, this is a very simple code that we have wrote. Okay, and what it will give us, it will give us a book object if it is found. Now what we require is first, so as you can see, the update method takes three things: ISBN number, which is basically the primary key, and this book DTO object, and the multipart file. Now there can be an instance when you have to change the file also, and there can be an instance where file is not required. So we will check that. So how do we check that? We will say if file not equal to null, if file not equal to null, then files dot delete if exists, and we will just pass the path the way we were doing it earlier in the add method. Okay, so plus file dot separator plus key. Now here we have to actually pass the book cover, the actual name of the file, so we need to extract that. So we will say book cover equal to book dot get book cover. Okay, and we will also require the book URL also, so let's extract that. Okay, so book dot get book cover URL. Now here we have to pass the book cover, which is the name of the file. Okay, so if you see here in the add method, so we were setting the book cover as a uploaded file name, right? So in the while we are deleting it, we have to provide the file name to this path, that which file you want to delete. Now it says add exception to method signature, so let's add it. Okay, now since we have deleted the existing file, we need to upload a new file because the file object is not null. So we will say file service dot upload file, and we will pass the path and the file. Okay, now it will provide us the updated file path, right? So this method will give us the file name, but whatever file name it gives, we want to assign it to the book cover only. So whatever name we receive, we will assign it to the variable book cover, and same we will have a book cover URL equal to base URL plus slash, and how we will do it, let's go to this one, file controller. So we have slash API slash v1 slash file, so this we have to give base URL. Okay, so we have to construct a new book cover URL also. Okay, so if this is done, now what we have to do is we have to do the same thing, we have to save it. Okay, so we will say book DTO dot set book cover, and we will set up the book cover, and book DTO dot set book cover URL, and we will set up the new book cover URL. Now, why these two things? Why I got this at the first place if I am assigning it directly to a new value? So in case file is not available, okay, if in case the file is null, okay, so in that case the same will be assigned, else these new values will be changed. So you can, what you can do is basically you can just remove it from here and you can assign it here. Actually that would make more sense. So in case you are uploading a new file, then you have to change the value of book cover and book cover URL. Okay, now we need to update the book. So we have the book object, so individually we have to set up everything. So set title, so it will be book DTO dot get title, then book dot set, so book dot set author is equal to book DTO dot get author, and same way we will do for all the fields. So I will do it very quickly. Okay, so we need to set up all these values in case it is changed, right? So this is the book entity which we are getting from the database, and we are setting their values with the book DTO object which we are getting from the user. Okay, now we simply have to call the save method. So we will say book repository dot save, and we will pass the book, and it will give us the updated book. Okay, now here we have to just to convert to DTO, and we have to pass updated book. That's it. Okay, so this is as simple as that. And delete is also very simple. So first thing is we have to search whether this book with the ISBN exists or not. So we will use this same method. So let's copy this. So let's copy. If it exists, so we have to first delete the file. So for deleting the file, we have already used this. So we will delete the file for this. Okay, and it requires book cover. So we'll say book dot get book cover. Okay, and we have to add the signature to all methods here, and simply we have to call book repository dot delete, and we will pass the entity. Here we will say book deleted successfully with ISBN. Okay, so this is all the service layer implementation we have done. Now next is to build the controllers for it. So let's build the controllers. So first thing is put mapping slash update book slash ISBN. Okay, and then we will say public response entity book DTO, and method name will be update book, and here we will have path variable first. So path variable ISBN long type at request path. So here we will say required equal to false, and this will be a multipart file. Okay, so file is optional. And finally at request part we will have string book DTO JSON. This throws IO exception. Okay, now we will first check whether file is null or not. So if file is empty in the case, then also we will set the file to null. Okay, so that a null file goes, and we will say book DTO equal to get book DTO. So we have to convert the stringified JSON into a Java object. And finally we will return response entity dot okay. Here will be book service dot update book, where ISBN book DTO and file, all these three will be passed. Okay, perfect. Now final controller is delete mapping. So we will have delete and we will have ISBN. So we will have public response entity will pass a string delete book. Then we will have path variable long ISBN, and it also throws IO exception because the service method throws the IO exception. So we will return response entity dot okay book service dot delete book, and will pass the ISBN. Perfect. So we have developed all the methods here, and all the methods are for now are completed. Now we just need to test these update and delete books. So let's restart our Spring Boot application. So the application has started successfully. Now let's test our APIs. So here if you see, I have added few more books here. So if you click on this, so there are around 5 books I have added now. Okay, you can add a few more books just to test out. So I will get a new request. Here I will say update book. Okay, and I will have to pass the ISBN. So let's take ISBN of this one, head first design patterns. Okay, let's change its ISBN. So this is the book, Now in the body, we will say form data. Now it is not required that you pass the file or not. Either of the case, it will change. So one example I will give you where we are passing the file, and one example we will see if we are not passing the file. Okay, and we need to make this method as put. Okay, let's copy from here book DTO JSON. Okay, and file also same to same. So I have to pass a book DTO JSON. Okay, let's take the JSON itself. Okay, and let's copy paste it here. So what we have to do is we will just change the price from 25 to say 27, and we'll change the description, say one of the wonderful and useful book to learn about design patterns in non-boring way. Okay, quantity we will change to 150. Okay, perfect. Now here I'm not passing the file. So this is the first example which I'm giving where I'm not passing the file and I'm trying to update the book. So let me just check whether the endpoint I've written correct. /update book /ISBN. Okay, perfect. So this is done. Now let's send it. Okay, so there is some error. Let's see what error we have got. Okay, so it is saying that file is null. Okay, so actually here we have to check one more thing. If file equal to null or file is empty, then file equal to null. Here also, if you see, we have said required equal to false. So let's add this here also. Otherwise, in add also you will get the same error. Okay, so this is important actually, so that you take care of these null cases also. So let's restart our application. This check was really important. So this is how you get to know about the checks when you do the testing of your API. So now let's fire again this query, the request. So if you see, we have the updated price, the updated quantity, and updated description, and our image remains the same. So if you go to this image on the Google, so you will get the book, right? Perfect. Now let's try to change book, but this time we will also give a new cover to it. Okay, so let's take this example. So this book is Wings of Fire. Okay, so we will add a new cover to it. Okay, so let's update this. So let's copy paste first this book. Okay, let's take its ISBN number. Okay, this time I will take the file. Now what I will do is, I have already the file, but I will change the file name. So if you see right now, if you see here right now, the file name is wingsoffire.png. Okay, so I will make it Wings of Fire 1. Okay, something like this. Or so let's see if the file name changes, as well as we will also see that here, if you see, this file should wingsoffire.png should get deleted, and Wings of Fire -1 should be here, right? So let's select the file. So here we have the file. Let's rename this file. Okay, -1. Okay, so let's select this file, open it, and here also let's make some changes. So let's make the name to doctor. Let's add doctor to our great scientist APJ Abdul Kalam, and must read book for everyone. Here let's change the category from computer science to autobiography. Okay, let's change the price from 15 to 18. Let's change the quantity from 1000 to 1200. Okay, so these changes we are doing. Now let's fire the query. So if we fire the query, okay, we have not got the name of the file here. We have not got changed. Let's see what's the problem. Okay, so if we go to delete here, why we are not getting this? Let's check it out. I have resetted all the things. So the errors which we were getting, it was due to few logical issues that I missed out, and it was also due to the JSON formatting error. So JSON formatting error was because, so suppose this is the JSON which we were passing. Okay, now if we put a comma after this, so you can see we are getting the error. So this same comma issue was there, which was causing a lot of issues for us. Okay, and second, I have caught a logical error in our update code. Is we were putting these two blocks of code into the if block. Okay, now these two lines of code should not be put into the if block. The reason is the book cover and book cover URL which we are getting from the user will always be empty, because we have to construct the values for this. So either they will receive the values which are present in the book object we are fetching from the database, or in case we are updating the file also, so the new book cover and book cover URL will be set to these book detail fields. Okay, and after that we have to also set the book object field like this, and then we have to save it. So these were the logical issues which due to which we were getting internal server error. So now with these fixed, we have now wingsofFire.png as a file name here. If you see here in the database, it is also wingsofFire.png, and here also we have getting the same thing. Okay, so seems like all things are good, and also we have to put a slash over here also. Yeah, this also was an issue. So now with all the issues resolved, so these are small issues which happens to everyone, whether you are a new beginner or a experienced one. So nothing to worry. You just need some time to debug these small issues, and these are easily resolved also. Okay, so it's fine. So now our application has restarted and it is working perfectly fine. So now let's fire the query again. So we have passed the ISBN number here in the path variable. Here we have passed the proper JSON thing. So, okay, so actually I have updated it to the original values also, 15 and 1000 word original values, I think. So I updated to it. I updated the original file names and the original path. Okay, so all I have set it up. So let's make some changes here. So let's include a doctor in the name, and also let's change this category from computer science to autobiography. Okay, let's change the price from 15 to 18, and let's change the quantity from 1000 to 1200. Okay, let me check whether these values are here. Okay, let's change this to computer science because our original value was computer science only. Okay, perfectly fine. Okay, so if we refresh it, we are getting the perfect values. Perfect. So here let's select the file. We are selecting Wings of Fire, and let's change the name to Wings of Fire 1. Okay, so let's select the Wings of Fire 1 file, and now if we do the query, see, we are getting the perfect results, right? So all the changes are reflected. The name has been changed, the category has been changed, the price has been changed, quantity has been changed, and book cover URL has been changed. So if you come over here, you will see that the earlier file has been deleted and the new file has been reinstated here, uploaded here basically. If you click over this file, you'll get the file also, right? So this much we have done and completed. Now what remains next? So the next remains is building the front end for this CRUD operation. So that's what we are going to do in the next set of our videos. So be ready for building and starting our React project to build the front end for this. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you have liked the content, and please subscribe to the channel and like the video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to start with a React project for building our UI for the book API that we have been developing in the past few videos. So the CRUD operations have been completed for them. So now we are going to proceed with building the front end with the React. Okay, so there are various ways in which we can develop the React project. So one of the ways which we are going to adopt is using Vite. Okay, so basically Vite is basically a build tool which is useful to, which is a very great way to develop a pure React project. There are other ways also, like we can use Next.js, a popular React framework, but we'll do that in maybe in future. But for now, we are going to use Vite to get started with our React project. Okay, so before we move on, please subscribe to the channel and please like the video if you are enjoying the content, and leave the comments in below if you have any doubts, any questions about the concept or any topic. Okay, or you want to give some your feedback on any of the things. Okay, so let's start building our React project. So you have to come to vite.dev. Here we have to come to get started. So if you go down here, so you will find this command npm create vite at latest. So just copy this command and open the terminal in the folder. So I have a folder actually here, the React. Okay, so I will open this. Okay, it is opened here, and I will open in terminal. Let me bring the terminal here, and I will just paste the command. Now before you run this, make sure you have the node installed in the system. So if you see something like this, node dash p, and if some kind of version comes up, then you are all set to go. You can download the latest LTS version. That would be the most good thing. Currently the LTS version is also 22.14, so you can go with it. So now let's start creating our React project. So let's copy this command and let's press enter. So the first thing it will ask you is for the project name. So I will name this as book API UI. Okay. After this, it will ask for a framework. So we have to go with React, and after that it will ask that whether you want to use JavaScript or TypeScript. So I'm going to use TypeScript because it is more standard practice to use TypeScript nowadays with React. JavaScript is good for learning, but it is up to you, your choice. If you want to continue with JavaScript, you can. We will be doing this project in React using TypeScript. Okay, so that is done. So now let's move into our folder. As these 3 instructions are given, so we have to follow these instructions. And before we do the last 2 of them, let's open our project in the VS Code. Okay, so code and dot. So our VS Code is opened. Let's close the another instance. Okay, so as you can see, we have our project opened here. Let's open the terminal. So terminal is opened. Let's do npm install. Npm install and enter. So it will, what npm install will do is, in the package.json you can see there are dependencies for React and React DOM, and some are dev dependencies regarding the ESLint and TypeScript related thing. So all these dependencies will get installed. Okay, it will fetch all the dependencies from the remote server. Also, you can see that there are 2 types of dependencies here. So one is simply known as dependencies, and second is known as dev dependencies. So what the meaning of both is, these dependencies are crucial from the stages of development to the stages of production. Okay, even in production, this dependency is required to run the project, but this dev dependency is only required while we are in the development stage, when we are writing the code. Okay, so that is the main difference between these 2 things. Okay, so our dependencies have been installed. As you can see, a new folder node modules have been there, so we don't need to touch the folder. This folder has all the dependencies that we require, so let's leave it here and let's close this. Now we are going to install few more dependencies. Okay, so what are those dependencies? Let's understand about them. So first thing is, we will require some kind of UI library to design our project. Okay, so you can use your own designs. I have my own code for the design of various components, so I will be using them directly. The logic part I will explain you step by step, okay, in detail, but the CSS part I will just copy paste what from the templates or from the code that I already have. Okay, so and in this project we are going to use Tailwind CSS for that. So let's go to Tailwind CSS. So this is the Tailwind CSS website. If you say get started, so we need to install this Tailwind CSS. Okay, so here in the installation section you can see it is saying using Vite. Okay, since we are using the React project using Vite, so we have to go with these instructions. So first thing, it is saying that this command you have to execute. Okay, so go here and execute this command. We just have to follow all these commands and everything will be configured in our system. Okay, so this is done. Next is, in the vite.config.ts file we have to add these 2 things. Okay, so let's first add this one. So here we will add the import statement just below it, and here what we have to do is we have to do Tailwind CSS and as a function. Okay, this is simply a plugin for Tailwind CSS, and just save it. Okay, so that's done. Now it says we have to import this into our CSS file. It has not specified a particular CSS file because using Vite we can create React project or Next project or various other framework project also. So every framework has its own file. So in our React project, where we have to put is, if you go into src, we have this index.css. Okay, here we have to put it. So but before that, one thing, let's do it. Let's do npm run dev. Okay, why? To check whether the application is running or not. Okay, so let's go here, localhost, and so our application is working fine. So everything, the installation and the setup of our project is completed, and we can see this button is working fine. So this means that the project is working fine. Now we just need to add tailwind CSS. So let's stop this application for now, and let's continue with our installation. So what we have to do is in index.css, Control A, and just import this. Okay, next what you have to do is go to index.html, and you have to do this, add this part. Okay, so just add it here, and rather than styles.css we have index.css. okay, so just save this. Perfect. Now whether our TypeScript, or sorry, our tailwind is working or not, so let's verify this. So in app.css also, just remove the CSS part, all the CSS. We want a clean slate first, so remove these imports, remove this statement, and remove all this thing. Okay, just write a simple hello book app. Okay, if we write hello book app, and now if we run this start our application, then you will see that so it is coming. Now let's apply the CSS, tailwind CSS actually. Now before you apply this tailwind CSS, install two extensions also. So the first extension is this ES7 React Redux React Native Snippets. Okay, this extension is useful because it will give us the shortcuts to create the functions. Okay, we'll see soon what it helps in. And second one is you should also install this Prettier. It will help in formatting the code. You can install this JavaScript and TypeScript nightly, so it helps in IntelliSense part. This tailwind CSS IntelliSense, so it helps in writing the tailwind code. It gives suggestions. Okay, so that would be helpful while writing the tailwind code. And you can also install this ESLint part. Okay, so these are some of the extension. Also this one also you should install auto close tag and auto rename tag. So these are some of the very important extensions and very helpful one. Okay, and if you want to get this theme, if you like this theme, if you want to use this, then use this chai theme. Okay, this is a wonderful theme by Hitesh Chaudhary. So do use this theme if you really like the whole, if you like this color thing. Okay, I personally use this theme a lot, so I would recommend you to use it. Okay, now let's get back to our main work. So we have to apply the tailwind CSS. So let's write a class name, and here we will, what we will do is we will say text3xl, and if we save it, you see our text has increased in the size. Okay, and okay, so sometimes, like for me, it is now it is not working. Okay, so there is some problem in this tailwind CSS extension. So what you can do is just uninstall it and restart the extension. Okay, and then install it. So this makes the tailwind CSS work. The extension starts to work. So if you write now, you can see this comes up, right? So what we will do is we will say text center. So the text comes in at center of the page. So this means that our extensions are working. The tailwind is working. The dependency that we have installed, as you can see here in the package.json, the tailwind CSS dependency we have installed, these two, one for Vite and for tailwind CSS. So these dependencies are working. Now next part is to configure the routes. Okay, so let's first close the application for now. So we have to go to, let's go to React router. Okay, so here is the React router. So we need to configure our routing inside our application. So let's do this. Now there are various ways to install this. It is a framework mode, data mode, and declarative mode. So we will go with the declarative mode because it uses Vite. First of all, you can do this in a Vite project, and secondly, the way we can do is very easier to do. Okay, so let's install this dependency, because if you go in this data mode, if you see, there are two ways of writing two ways of defining the routes in React. Okay, so first using this kind of syntax, and second is using the declarative syntax. Most of the projects, the new projects that we use, so they use this declarative syntax, but it is up to the personal taste of, it is up to the personal choices. Okay, so in most industry projects, the team lead or the senior software engineers mostly decide which way to go. Okay, but we'll go with the declarative approach. So let's open our terminal and CLS, and we'll install this. Okay, So we have installed the React router into our project. Now how to configure this? So we have to configure the React router within the app.tsx file only. So how the whole project structure works is this main.tsx. This basically is responsible to actually everything starts from this index.html. This is the one HTML file. Okay. Now if you see here, you have this div with the ID root. Okay. So it searches for an ID root component. Okay. Basically, now where it will inject that element. So it comes from main. Now what does main do is it simply uses a simple JavaScript and says create root document.get element by ID root, and it just renders the app component. Okay. And if you go in the app, then we can write our own our own HTML CSS, or basically our own JSX. Okay. So these are some of the basic React concepts that you should know, because this is not a React course. This is about building the project using React. So I expect you have a prerequisite knowledge about the React. Okay. So how do we configure the routing? So let's understand that. Okay. Now rather than returning a JSX, what we will, or something like this, what we'll do is we'll return something like there is a something known as router. Okay. So this router is important, and we will use this router to, so this router forms the parent of it. Okay. It's a parent route which provides, basically if you see here, provides location context for rest of the app. Okay. Now you have to include the routes within it. So how do you include it? You write a tag routes. So this routes tag define all the routes within it. Now actually the router, it is not actually a router but a browser router actually. Okay. Browser router you can write as router. Okay. I'll just remove this. Okay. So this is, so browser router basically is used for a router for use in web browsers, provide the cleanest URLs. So it is a parent route, and then you can define all your routes within this routes tag. So how you will define the routes within your routes tag? So we will say route, and you will self close this tag, and then there is a prop known as path. The value will pass as this, and second is element. So element you have to define, you basically have to pass a component here. So we have not yet defined any our own component, so let's define it. So in src, create a new folder, name as components, and in this new file we'll say home.tsx, and in tsx we'll have to write a function, so we will say rfce. So this is a shortcut, and this shortcut comes from that extension, es7 extension. Okay, that's why I was saying to install that extension. So this is how it is defined. Okay. So this is a home component, and on this slash path we need home component. So we will have a home component here. Perfect. We also need one navbar. Okay. So let's create a navbar.jsx, again ce. Okay. Let's remove this. Now what we have to do is, if you open the application npm run dev, so if you open this, you will see that at the home route, which is at the slash route, home is coming, right? Now what we now require is that this navbar should be common to all the components. Okay, irrespective of which component is there, navbar should be everywhere present, right? So what we have to do is, it cannot be a part of any route, it has to be outside of it. So if you want to keep any component outside of something which has to be present across all the components, then what you have to do is you have to insert that component here. So write your component here, navbar. Okay, so let's import it. Okay, it's not coming. I hope we have given default navbar. I don't know why the suggestion is not coming, but let's import it manually. Navbar from, okay, we have written JSX by mistake. Okay, that was the mistake actually. Rename to tsx. Okay, now it will come automatically. It was my mistake. Okay, so now this navbar component you have put here. So irrespective of whichever routes you define inside this routes tag, for all the routes, this navbar will always be visible. So if you go back to this, you see here navbar is there to make sure that all that is fine. So if you create another, say about.tsx, we create another component. Okay, remove this, and let's configure a route. So let's copy this, let's say about, and we import the about component here. So if we go on to the about component, so you can see this home changes to about, but navbar still remains. So this means that our navbar component is global. Basically, it remains across all the components. So this is the kind of project setup that we have done. Now what kind of structure we will require? So we will require basically two components, addbook.tsx, and we will require another one as editbook.tsx. Okay, these two are the components that we will be initially working upon. So how do we add the book and how do we edit the book? So where do we display all the things? Like if you go over the backend project in the book controller, so we have this all books, right? So how do we get this information? And how do we get the information of a particular book by their ISBN number? So these two things we will do in the home component. Okay. So in the home component, there will be the list of all the books. If you click on a book, their individual details will be there. And in the nav bar, okay, in the nav bar, you will see that if you go here, so in this nav bar area, what we will do is we will keep an add book section. Okay, so that when you click over it, you get a form where you can add all the details about the book. Okay, this is how it is going to be. I know it is, if you basically, it is sounding very simple and not going too much. The main purpose behind this is to make you familiar with how we can develop a React frontend for our backend. Okay, the logic part is important. How do we do on front end? How do we handle front end? Okay, through various fancy things that we can do in some other kind of project. But here in this series, the objective is not to go too much fancy into it, whether design wise or whether the whole complexity wise, but it is basically to make you understand the logic behind building a full stack project. Once you understand the logic, you can organize your code, you can include various libraries, maybe you can directly use a framework and whatnot. Okay, so we will discuss about them also later, but the main purpose of this project is to keep it simple yet focused upon the core logic of developing a full stack application. Okay, in the next video we will work upon our home component. Okay, and we will see how can we fetch the data. So the first objective is to fetch the data, and we will also design a beautiful navbar for that. Okay, so that's all for this video, and if you are enjoying the content, then please like the video, please give a comment. Let's target at least 20 to 25 comments in the comment section at least. Let's see how many of you comment it. The more you comment, the more you like, it will really be very much useful for me to get more and more motivation to build more such videos. Okay, so do like the video and you share it on various social media platforms, whether it's X, Insta or LinkedIn, okay, or in your WhatsApp group where among your friends to learn from it. So that's all for this video. Subscribe to the channel and like the content. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. So in the last video, we have started our React project with Tailwind CSS and we have done all the setup for our project. Okay. So here we will start building our pages or our UI components, right? We will create the UI component for our navbar, for our home page, and so on. So before moving on, please subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and if you are liking the content, please press on the like button and give a comment as a review for the video. Okay, so let's begin with let's start building our UI component building. So if you see here, we have set up some routes where if you go to the code and if you go to app.tsx, so we have this nav bar which will be available globally, okay, across the whole thing. And we have the two routes currently. One is the home path and one is the about. Now we need to first design our nav bar, which we need to do. So for designing the nav bar, I would just use the Tailwind CSS. So I would just copy paste the code. It is just simply a CSS part. So nothing logical here. So just let me copy it here. Okay. So I have this code here. Now you may be seeing some errors. So the errors we will resolve here. I've just copy pasted all the important classes that is required here. Okay. So the first thing is this link tag, which we are getting the error here. So this link tag is basically coming from the React router. Okay. So if we say all missing imports, so it will come as a from React router. So we use, rather than using the a and a tag with href, we use link tag. So the reason is to avoid the page reload when we are navigating to another URL. Okay, so that is one reason. Another, if you see here, we have a button here actually for making it responsive. Okay, so we have, so for mobile menu button, which is basically, you can say we are going to make our page responsive. So I have used this property. So basically we have to use the state. Okay, so we will create our state. So it will be is open and set is open equal to use state. Okay, and we will set it to false initial. Okay, so this is our navbar. Now let's go back to our code and see. So if you see here, we are getting our navbar here. Now what that state is doing is making our page responsive. So if I do this, you can see here we are now getting the page like this, right? Even if you scroll like this, you will have a responsive page. Okay, so that is the main idea behind those state. You using the state to manage the responsiveness of the page. So use state basically within a component, if you want to manage the state of your various things, you want to perform the actions based on the state change of your components like buttons or like the CSS part. So for that, the state management comes in handy. Okay, so this is how our navbar is looking up. So once we have done about the navbar, now we are going to do the same for home component. Now what is required in the home component? So what we will do is, in the home component we will include all the, you can say all, we will call the API from the backend and get all the books that, and we will display it here. Okay, so that is the main purpose behind the home component. But before the doing this and to call the API, let's set up the whole thing to call the API. So what I will do is I will create another folder. So I will create another folder here and I will say here types. Okay, and I will create another folder and I will name it as services. Now this types folder is required to define the types. So in the, if you go to the Spring Boot project, we have defined this book DTO object. So this book DTO object is responsible for interaction with the data that is coming from the client side, and it is passing over the that data to the service layer and vice versa, right? So we need to create this book DTO object type there also, because we are using basically the TypeScript. Okay, so you have to define a type. So simply we will come to types folder, we will have something known as book DTO.ts. okay, and we will say export type book DTO equal to, and then we can simply define types. Okay, so first will be ISBN, which will be a number, then title, which is a string, then author, description, and category. Okay, so author is a string, description a string, and category. Okay, and next is price, quantity. So we have taken price as double. Okay, price as number, quantity as number, and finally book cover and book cover URL. So let me just copy this here. Now this is not this is a book cover and book cover URL are the fields which is based upon, it's kind of an optional field. Okay, it is not required actually, because we are setting those fields at the server side. Okay, at the backend code, while checking that whether the file we are getting or not. So how can we make this field as optional is by using a question mark. So like this, and then string, and simply cover URL. This is also an optional. Okay, so we have defined our types. Now we need to call the APIs from it. So if you go over here and if you go over book controller, we have this book controller, which is all books. Okay, this API we have to call here. So all the API work needs to be done in this. We will create a service layer which will deal with it. So another thing, we will say book.service.ts. Now these are the practices how we normally do in how we structure our React project. Every company can restructure projects, a React project according to their own way, because React is a library basically. So there are no hardcore rules on how your project structure should be. It is up to your convenience on how you want your project structure to be. Okay, so we will include a service. Now to call the API call, for the API call we have a fetch in the JavaScript which we can use, but there is a more robust library that is being used, and which is the Axios. So we will install the Axios first. So let me open a terminal window and we will say npm install Axios. Okay, and it's done. Okay, let's just restart our server maybe. Okay, that's done. Now we can easily work with the Axios. So how can we do it? So before we proceed ahead, we need to define our base URL. Okay, now if you see in the backend project, we have defined a dot where we have defined all these properties. So in the same way, in our project also we will be defining a dot env file. So dot env file will be a global thing. So we will say dot env. Okay, here we will define our backend URL, and it will be http local host 8080 / API / v1, and let me check on /books, or maybe just we can append this one only. Okay, because this is actually the base URL. The /API / v1 can be different for all other controllers if we have more controllers, so will not use that. Now to use this environment variable within the Vite project of React, there is a standard on how to do it. Okay, so if you go to Vite React environment variables, search here. So see, here they tell about how we can use the environment variables. So there are some rules. Okay, so basically we have to prefix our environment variables using this Vite thing. Okay, so let's do this first, and using in our backend API, and then this is the way how we get the environmental variables. So let's import this environment variable here, base URL. So our base URL will be import dot meta dot env dot env dot. We have to copy this actually. So just copy it, as it is not giving the suggestion backend URL. Okay, so this we have got here. Okay, now we are going to export const, and we are going to create simple functions which is responsible for calling the APIs. So we will first say get all books. Okay, sorry, and in getting those books, what we are going to do is we are going to use the Axios here basically. So let's first import the Axios, import Axios from Axios, and then we will say return Axios dot get, because it is a get mapping. Okay, it is a get type of request. Now we have to pass the base URL, so we will pass the base URL here, append API /v1 / books. It is book or books, let me check, books, and then we have to add all books. Okay, now if you see here, this get gives a promise. Okay, and then we can apply then and catch on that promise while calling this function. Okay, so this is how we set up our get all books, and in the same way we will write the functions for these all the endpoints. Okay, so now come to the home part, because in the home component we are going to call these things. Right now what we actually want is, if you see, here is our home page, as you can see. Okay, now on this home page, whenever we come to home page, we just want that whenever this component loads, the data should get populated and we should get a list of all the books. Okay, so that is our main purpose here, and that's exactly what we are going to do. So for that, when we want that React should load all the data on the load of the component, so we have a special hook which is known as use effect. Okay, and we need to use this hook. So basically it takes an callback function, and we have to pass our logic here. Okay, now logic here will be simply to call the this, if you see here, this book service. Okay, this method get all books. So we will just say get all books dot as a method dot then. Okay, so it returns a promise. Okay, and then in it we will get some response. If the API call is completely good, then we will get a response. So for now we will just console log the response. So we will say response as response. Okay, and there can be another instance where we can get error. So we say catch. So we pass error and we simply say console.log error equal to error. Okay, sorry, my bad, error equal to error. Okay, so this is what we are trying to fetch. So now let's see whether we are getting any kind of response or not. So let's go here and let's go over here. Let's go to console and we are getting an error. So what this access error is basically saying is, if you see here, it is a course error. So whenever you are trying to access the resources from another URL and you're calling some API, so it should not be blocked by the course. Okay, so to avoid this, we just have to make it annotation cross origin. Okay, and then restart our application. So our application is restarted, and now if we load the page, and you can see we are getting the response. Okay, so and in the response, if you see, the actual data is coming in the data property. Okay, so basically we want this data thing. Now what we will do is we'll go here and we will print response.data. Okay, and we will save it and let's see what we get. So now in the response we are getting, or let's remove this and let's call again. So we are getting the list of all the books that we want to display in the home page. So the next important thing remains is we have to display the books. Okay, so let's close it and we need to create a UI for that. So let's create a UI for it. Now before we create a UI, we need to store the response at some place so that we can iterate over our components or our UI part, and then we can display it. Okay, so to store in something, so storing the book data is basically about the state management thing. So again we will use a use state thing. So we will have books and set books, and we will use state, and it will be of type array, and we will need to define the type. So it will be of type book DTO. Okay, book DTO array. Okay, and when we are getting the book, we will just set books. We will call the set books function from here, and we will write response.data, because this is actually the list of books that we are getting. Okay, so initially books was having no data, but after calling this function, the books will have the list of all the books that we're getting from the backend application. Now we just need to iterate over these books in a component and we can display it. So exactly how can we do is, I'll show you. Okay, so how we will write or iterate in the component. Now here in the JSX, we need to write a JavaScript code. To write a JavaScript code, we use curly brackets here. Then we say books dot map. We get each book object, and we simply, what we do is we create a div component. Within it, we create a h1 component and simply write book dot says title. Okay, and we save it. Now if you see it, we are getting this thing. So it is as easy as it seems, right? But now if you go over here, you can see that there is a lots of database calling happening over. So the reason is, how are we going to handle this thing? So to handle this thing, so we need to pass basically a dependency array over here, for in case we have a dependency array. Otherwise this will just continue. If you see here, now it has stopped. So here we have written JavaScript code and we are displaying these books. Okay, so if you refresh over again, we are seeing all the things. But here if you see in the console, you are getting one error which is saying each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Now the reason behind this error is, every object that you are iterating over here should be uniquely identifiable, so that any changes you make to the React component, that particular object or that particular component which is being changed will only be particular will be targeted. Okay, not the whole page or not all the components will not be targeted. So that is the reason why we need to pass key, and key should be unique. So in the book, the unique thing is ISBN number. So if we pass here and if we do again, you see we are getting all the things, but no error is there. Now we want to beautify it. So I will just copy paste the UI part. So you can just copy paste all those things. Okay, I have added few CSS classes, few divs, so to style it. Now if I save it, so you can see it is coming in this way, which it seems much better, right? So that's how we are displaying it. Now there is a add book thing, and there is, if you see there is edit button, there is delete button. So all we have to make it functional, which we are going to do in the next video. But till here, I hope you have understood that how we are going to do it. Okay, so let me just revise it for you. So we did our navbar thing. Okay, we made navbar which was global, and we made it fully responsive. So to make it fully responsive, we are using the state management, the local state management using use state. Okay, so based on this, the responsiveness in on the smaller screens also helps. Next, we created a type, a book detail type. So this type is the type in which we have to send the data to the backend as it is expecting. If you see over add also, then it is expecting in a string. We'll see how we are going to do that, but basically you need these types. Okay, and then we have created a book service, and we have configured .env file. So .env file, we have wrote our backend URL using the prefix wait. So whenever you are working with the wait React project, make sure all your environmental variables are prefixed with wait underscore. Okay, and then we imported this variable. Then we wrote a function where we have returned, where we have wrote the logic for calling the API. This will give us the promise, and we have returned that promise. And in the home component, since on the load of the home component, we want to display all the list of the books, so we have used this use effect, which is useful here. And we have called the get all books method from the book service. We have used then and catch syntax. Then means if the response you are getting has no error, then you will get certain response, and in that response, the actual data will come in the data part, the data property of the response. And in the catch, we have handled the error. Now these two things we have wrote because we want to display the book in our page. Okay, on our home page. So we need to store that information that we are getting from the backend in some variable. So we use these variables, and we are using use state so that React can handle those state management things and all those changes in the variable. Okay, we don't have to manually handle it. And then we use this JavaScript block inside the JSX code and just wrote the displayed the components. Okay, that's all we have done. And this key we have written, okay, which is basically an identifier for each object to identify that object uniquely. Okay, uniquely by the React. So that is basically that what we have done. Now the next part will be to create or to design the add component, edit component, and to see how deletion can be done. Okay, so this is the stage at which what we have reached. So in the next one, we'll try to complete add, delete, and edit. Okay, so that's all for this video. If you are liking it, please subscribe to the channel and press the like button. I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we are going to start with the major operations like add book, delete, and edit. Okay, so let's begin with the operation of adding the book. So if you click on the add book path, then you'll see that currently our page is empty, right? So we need to display some kind of a form where user can enter the details of the book, and we will collect those details and send a request to our backend API for performing the add operation. Okay, so before we start with that, let's at least first call our APIs, build a functions for calling the backend APIs. So let's go to book service and let's say export const add book. And now here in this while calling this API, we have to pass, if you see here, if we go to our backend code, so in this add book we are having these two objects. It is a string JSON object, right? And there is a multipart file. So basically it is a multipart request. So for handling such multipart request, or for sending the multipart request from frontend to the backend, we use a special type called as form data. Okay, so form data, and it is all of type form data. Okay, so this is what we use. Also, one small mistake that we did earlier was we should make these calls as async. Okay, so I made that mistake earlier. I didn't include that async. So all these API calls should be async await, right? Because it's all about, because we need to wait for the data to get fetched or for the operation to get performed. right? And then we will say simply return await axios dot post. Okay, we will use the post method. We will put our base URL. We will say API slash v1 slash books slash, and it is add book. So add book. Okay, now here we have to pass the form data, so we will just simply pass say form data. Okay, it is that easy. So we have built a function for adding the book. Right, now let's come to our add book component. Now in our add book component we have to make form. Okay, so first let's initialize our component fce. Okay, and let's remove this. So we save it and come here. Then okay, because of navbar it is not coming. Just let me make it empty10 text center. Let's change it to h1. Okay, let me check what the problem is. Okay, so we have actually not added the route only, so that is the problem. So let's add the route for it. Okay, so we'll say add book and element is going to be add book. Okay, self closing, and let's close this. Let's save it, and you can see we are getting the add book here. Okay, now since we are now getting our add book component here, so what we need to do is, so we need to now create our form. Now before we create our form, we need two things. First thing is we need to store the book data. So book data means, if you go here, we need to get this book DTO object. Now in book DTO object we need all this data, and second thing we are going to get is the file, because file has to be handled differently, and book data, which will be a part of JSON, will be handled differently. So here also we have to handle both data differently. So how we will do is, we will say the form data. Okay, we will use the hook use state, and we will have this particular variable will use the form data, the JSON data basically, and we will say set form data and use state. Okay, now what this state will contain? This state will contain basically our book DTO object, whatever the fields are there. So we will say ISBN is our field, and then title is our field, author, and then description, category, then price, and then quantity. We are taking price and quantity also as a string because it will get automatically casted to the integer values. Because if you see in the backend code, we are already converting this using get DTO. So while converting, it will convert it. Okay, if we pass a correct value like 23 or 100, then it will parse the string to the integer. Okay, so that's not a problem. Now next thing is we need to handle the files. Okay, and for handling the file we are going to use another state. So for that we will say book cover file, and we will say set, and we will just copy this, paste this, and make it capital. So set book cover file, use state. Now use state here, initial value will be null, and the type of use state we will define as file or null. Okay, because it can have either a file object or it cannot have a file object. Why? Because here, if you see here, in this request part we have said required equal to false. So a book object can be saved even without the file. The file part is optional. Okay, right? So this use state is for handling the files. We will also have one more use state. Now this use state is not required for our API, but I'm adding it for the purpose of the UI, and it is called book cover preview. So we will give some kind of a preview of the book image. So you will see it how it works basically. So use state, it will be of type string, and will pass an empty string here. Okay, so these important fields are required. Now I will just add all the classes, and I already have a form, so I will just copy paste that form, and then I'll explain it to you. Okay, so I have copy pasted this whole the code of the form which we are going to use. So here it is covered in a div. So here is a heading that add new form, and then enter the details to the inventory. It can be an inventory, it can be a store, whatever you want. I just added like inventory. Maybe we are having some kind of a bookstore, so we need to store in our inventory. Okay, then there is a form. Now in this form, if you see, here is a on submit handler which is basically used for handling the submission of the form once we want to send the data to the backend. So we have handled all these things. Now there is a function known as handle form data change. Now this function is responsible to handle the JSON data. So JSON data means this one, okay? And you see it is present over all the form fields here, right? So all the form fields I've included. Now if we come to file upload section, then we have one label which is a book cover, and then here we have some kind of a logic for seeing the cover image that we have uploaded, a kind of a preview, okay? So you'll understand that preview thing also. In case you want to remove the image, we have included a remove image thing also, and we have included the button for handling of the files, okay? So if there is a kind of a file which comes, so these things will be there, and this button is since for removing the image, so we will set these two properties as default, as the book cover file will be null and the preview will be empty string, okay? And everything in this one will be handled using book cover preview, okay? And if you go below, then we just are giving a button for uploading the cover image. Here we have just described it like this, but in our case, since we need a PNG, so we will remove these two things. So PNG up to 5 MB. Why PNG up to? Because if you see in the file controller, we are defining that produces a media type of image PNG value, okay? And then we are handling the file using a handle file change, okay? So handling form using handle form data change, and handling file using handle file change. And finally we have reset buttons and add button, okay? Now that add button will be basically connected to this function, okay? So let's define all these functions now. So first thing is handle form data change. Now in handle form data change, what we will get from it is an event. Now this event is of type basically react.change event, and we will have HTML input element. So since this event is, what it means is that any change in the input will be handled by the event, okay? It will trigger a kind of event. So if you suppose see this one, okay, if you see this input ISBN, so we have given a type which is text, a name which is ISBN. So this name is important, okay? Remember, because it is used for handling this handle form data change. We will see it soon. Then we have given the value. The value of it will be form data.isbn, okay? And which will basically set up the initial value also, and any change in the value will be reflected in the form through this field, okay? So it is a React way of handling the things. React will handle it for us. So to observe the changes that we are doing, suppose we are writing the ISBN number, so we are basically, there is a change going on, okay? So to handle those events, this is responsible, right? So that is how we are going to handle our events. And then we are going to say, since this is a function, so now we are going to, now what exactly we have to do is, we have to just set all the form data. So how we are going to set the form data? We will use this function. Now see, this function basically we have to set the values of all these fields. Now there is a way how we can do is by individually setting up these values, or there is a very shortcut way to do it. Shortcut in the sense it is a modern JavaScript, using modern JavaScript, okay? So how can we do it? We will take the previous state of the function. It gives us the previous state, and using this previous state, what we will do is we will use the spread operator, that okay, this is our previous state, make the change to the previous state. How do we make the changes to the previous state? So we will pass it.target.name. So this target.name is nothing but this name, okay? So for that field, it will identify it and just give it the value, okay? Now what this value is what we are passing to what we are writing in the field. So suppose in the title field, okay, currently it is empty. Now as you write the name of the book, so previous state of so this set form data basically gives you the previous state. You can access the previous state. So previous state of the book will be empty, right? Because we have set the initial state as empty string. So that will be the previous state. What is the new state? So it will be e.target.name. E.target.name will be title. So title, if you go, this will be the title name, and e.target.value will be the change that is reflected. So if you have written the name of the book as suppose a brief history of time, so title will get the value of brief history of time. Okay, and this will work for all the form fields like this, right? So that's all for this handle form data change. I hope you have understood it. Now next, let's handle the const file, or it is, I think, handle file data change, handle file change. Okay, so we will handle this also. Now this handle file also will take the same thing, react dot change event, and it will be html input element, because file is also a kind of an input. Okay, so basically first we are going to check whether the files are there or not before handling it. Okay, so we will say e dot target dot files. If files is present, here we are only accepting a single file, right? So we will say e dot target dot files, and we will take the zeroth index. Okay, because we are only accepting one file. Then we will simply say that, okay, let's save this file into e dot target dot files of 0. We'll save it in a variable, and then we will, in the book cover file, we will set the value of the book cover file as file. Okay, so this is how we are handling the file. Right now we also have to display the preview of the file. Okay, so how we display the preview? So for that we need to read the file. So for that we have to create another variable, const reader. It will be of type file reader. Okay, and then it has a value reader dot on load end. Okay, once the file load is completed, basically, then what it has to do is set book cover preview as reader dot result as string, because we have set its type as a string. Perfect. And then we will say reader dot read as data URL. So we basically have to display this also. So we are doing like this. Okay, so our preview is also completed. Now next function that we are going to handle is const handle submit, the main form submission. Okay, or we can handle this handle reset also. We will come to this handle reset later, but first let's do handle submit also. Handle submit. Okay, now this handle submit, if you are familiar with the concept of the basic form handling in React, then what we do basically is we get an event from it, and we say e dot prevent default. Okay, now this e in this case is of type which we have to define. So it is of type prevent default, and it gives a void, something like this. Okay, so it basically avoids the form to behave when submitting the form, to behave in a default manner, so that React can handle the form how it needs to handle. Okay, otherwise it will be handled in the traditional HTML form type. Right now we have in handle submit, what we have to do is we are getting the data of book, the JSON data from the form, and we are getting the file data. So we have to basically collect these two data, and we have to send it to the API. Now if you see here the API, it is saying I need an object of type form data. Okay, so first we need to construct the form data object. So we will say, oh sorry, not here, we will say basically const submit data equal to new form data. Okay, we'll create an object of this, and then how do we put all those data? Because if you see in the backend, we need two things. First is book DTO JSON, and second thing is file. Now remember that the data will be sent as a key value pair, as we have seen in the Postman testing also. Okay, that we were sending in the form of key value pair. So here this is the key, and here for the file this is the key. So it has to be exactly the same. So let's copy this first, this name book DTO JSON. We'll come here and we will say submit data dot append. So append is a method where we have to do this. So in semicolons we will pass the key, and to pass the data in as a JSON but in a stringified man, we have to say JSON dot stringify, and we will simply say form data. Okay, next we will then check if book cover file is empty or if the data is there or not, and then we will say okay, submit data dot append, and then we are going to send file and book cover file, simply like this. Okay, once this is done, now we have to call our function from book service. So let's see if it can be imported. Yes, so it is imported. As you can see here, add book. Now we will use this add book and we will pass the submit data here, and then simply it returns a promise. Okay, so we will have then we'll have a response from the backend. So what we will do with this response, basically we will say add book response equal to, and we will print response. Okay, and we will then call handles reset. Okay, because we want to reset our form. Basically also we want to, after we are done with the add book, you can continue to add if you want, or you can go to the home page. So for going to the home page, we will use another hook, okay, which is known as use navigate. So we will say navigate equal to use navigate. So this is another hook provided by React, which is used to redirect the user from one page to another after performing some actions. So we will say navigate and we will go to our home route. Okay, so this is the whole thing, but there can be error also. So we will handle the error. So error will be like, we will simply first console the error only. So error adding book. Okay, so this is how we are handling the addition of this book. I hope you have understood it. Okay, and in the reset, we simply have to, what we have to do is we have to say set form data and then make all these fields as empty. So we will just copy paste this. Okay, this is how it will work, and then we will say set book cover file as null and set book cover file preview as empty string. We'll save the changes and let's go to our here page, and you see we have got our form here. Perfect. So it's looking a bit cool, right? You can redesign your form if you don't like this one. I just randomly have chosen the design of this, right? So let's try to add another book. So if we go to home route, we have all these book here. So in the add book, we will add another book maybe, but this time let's see what kind of book we'll add. Okay, we will add a book with the name The Grand Design. It is written by Stephen Hawking. Okay, oh sorry, here I got, actually we have to paste this into here, and Stephen Hawking. ISBN you can pass anything for now. I am passing simply like this. Category can be science. Price maybe $30. Quantity 100. Description is, this book is about exploration into theory of everything. Okay, so this is about a theory of everything. If you have read the book, so we can have an image. So let me quickly download the image of this book. Okay, so I have downloaded the image of this book. So let's go to pictures, and here is the book. Let's copy this, and you can see this is what I was talking about, that we get a preview of this book. Okay, that what image we are downloading, and here's a button for remove. So if you click on here, again you get back the same thing. So let's keep the changes and let's open our console. So to see everything is working fine, let's remove this and let's add the book. So if we add the book, you can see here we have, our book has come up here. So we are back with our response, right? Perfect. So this is exactly what we wanted. Now we have to move towards the edit and delete functionality. Okay, so we have completed this one. Now let's move towards the edit and delete functionality. So where is the edit book? Here is the edit book functionality. So how do we handle this edit book functionality? Now on the home page only where the books are displayed, here is the two buttons, edit and delete. Now currently we have not applied any kind of handlers on it, but on edit and delete now we will put some handlers. Okay, first, this is the first step towards doing the edit. So we will have a on click and we will say handle edit. Okay, now I will pass it as like this because I need to pass the book object here, and in the same way let's copy this whole and we will say handle delete. Okay, so we are going to have the two functions for this. So first let's define these two functions. The logic we will discuss surely, book of type book DTO, and the same way there will be handle delete. Okay, now we have defined that these two functions, so we are good with that. It is saying book is okay, that we will cover next. So how we are going to do this? So there are various approaches to it. Okay, so let's come to the page. So if you look here, we have this edit and delete button. Now if you click on it right now, nothing will happen, but basically what we have to do is that we have to edit our book. So what, how edit should work? If we click on edit, either the first approach is we can have a path, we can give edit book to a route and it will take to that route, and we will have a form there, we will populate the data which we have for this particular book there, we can edit the data, and we will, after editing, we can just click on update and it will send the updated data to the backend and we will get our whole thing, right? So that is first approach. The second approach that we are going to use here is using a dialog box. So if we click on the edit, a dialog box opens which has a form in which the data is populated, and there we can do all the things. So I find it a much more better way of doing it rather than the first one. I mean, better in the sense it is a personal choice. Okay, that is also completely fine if you are, if you want to go that way, because there is no nothing else, like it is more efficient. Okay, it is just a matter of the personal choices how you want to do it. So I will go with the approach of having a dialog box popping up when we are clicking on edit or delete. Okay, so let's, so for that, because we know that in the edit book we are going to have a dialog box which is going to pop up. So let's design that dialog box form. Okay, so we'll say RFCE, we'll remove this, and what we are going to do is we are going to have a dialog box. Now to, we have to control the dialog box, we have to make sure that it is opened only when we are clicking on it and the data is transferred from the home component, because if you see here in the home component only, this button has the property of book. Okay, this, it has a information about this book, so we have to pass this one. So how do we pass this one? We can pass it through props. So we will create some props for it. Okay, so you can create something like, you can create a something like interface, and you will have something like edit book props. So we will define these props here. Now these props are important. Why these are important? Because we are going to pass the information using these props. So the first thing is we are going to pass a book information. Okay, so it is of going to be of type book DTO. Okay, or it can be null, right? Okay, second is going to be, is it open or not? So depending on the state of, or on the value, whether it is open or not, this whole dialog box will be visible. Okay, next is on close, that any action to be taken if the dialog box is closed, and we will pass something like a function. Okay, and there is on submit. So it is again a property that on, when we are trying to submit the form inside that dialog box, inside this dialog box, what action is going to be taken. So we have to pass basically a book of type book DTO, and we have to pass a file of type file. So it will expect both of these things and it will return nothing. Okay, so these are the functions that we these are the properties interface that defines that this is the props that we require. Okay, now here we have to we will destructure the props and we pass book is open, close, and on submit. Okay, now if you are not able to understand for now, just wait for some time, because this is a slightly a tricky concept also when we are dealing with the dialog box, because there has to be communication between the home component and edit book component. Okay, and you will understand it soon, that how we are going to have that interaction. Now the same way we have handled the add book, we have to set up our state also. Okay, so we will say const form data set form data use state. It will be of type book DTO, and we will pass book here simply, and we have to make ensure we are that this book is never going to be null. Why this book is never going to be null is because this dialog box will only be visible when this is open property is true. Okay, so we will see why this dialog box is not going to be, because just we are not clicking on anything, we are clicking on a particular data that is visible on our screen, and that's why. So next thing is to handle the file. So we will say book cover and then set book cover. Okay, so we will pass use state file null and initial value will be null. Then we will have for preview we need something, so we will basically get URL. Okay, preview URL, set to preview URL. The state, it will be of type string or it can be null. So we will have, now from where we will get it, we will get it from book. So book, in case book is not empty, so we will say book cover URL. Okay, and null, because here we are not uploading the file, here we are trying to display the already uploaded file, so we need the book cover URL, right? Perfect. Now let me add the design for the form here. Okay, and then we'll discuss about it. Okay, so as you can see here, this whole design looks of edit book looks the same. Okay, handle submit and all these things that we have seen already. What is the change? That we already know that we already have the data and we just have to populate it. So this form data will already have a data, it will populate it. Okay, and here we have used a ref. We basically have used a reference state, that is use ref thing, to simplify things. You can use name or you can use reference, it doesn't matter really, it's both same. So if you don't understand what is the difference between the two, then in that case you need to revise your React concept, because this is not a React video. Okay, so we will be using all these states very comfortably, because use ref, use state, use effect, all are very basic hooks. Okay, so let's first define our reference above and then we'll define all the functions. So we will say const input file reference use ref, and it will be of type HTML input element and initial value will be null. Perfect. So this is basically for handling the files. So if we want to remove the existing file and we want to have another file instead of it, that, so basically because we are performing a update operation, so this will be useful, right? So let's start with const handle form data change. So we will have the same thing as we had in the add one. So let's copy it. Okay, let me copy this whole. Now from here it will be easier because already you have understood the add book thing. Okay, so no, not a big deal. Again, I'm going to do the same. Actually, let's copy this only, because for edit book also, whichever field you change, their previous state or the current state you will get, and using the current state you can change there and they will get a new value if you change there, if you try to edit any of the values. Okay, so this is the basic functionality. Next we will have const file or const handle file change. Okay, so it will, so I have already inserted this type, we have already seen this, and it is also gonna be the same. So let's just copy paste it, the whole function, or maybe just this one part. Okay, now it is all about copy paste. Once you understand the basic things, then the rest of the things become easier. Okay, so not a big deal. We will say set preview URL. Okay, so it's as like that. Okay, perfect. Now next function that we are going to see is handle submit. So const handle submit, it will be of type react dot form event and e dot prevent default. Okay, we can make it type like that also. Both are basically the same, only you can make whatever you want. You can change it to that. Now in the handle submit, we need to submit our data. Now this on submit function, we will click handle submit here, but it will call some function. What function it will call? It will call an on submit function. Where is that on submit function? Here it is, a on submit function, and this on submit function we will define in the home component. So it will have to transfer there, and now we will be doing form data. It will pass form data to it and will pass book cover to it. Okay, or we will just say undefined. Either it is a book cover or it is a undefined. Okay, something like this, and we will then say on close like this, simply. Perfect. Now when this, we have to handle a case that when this whole edit book component should be visible. So if is open is false, return null. Okay, so this condition we have to add. So in case only when is open is true, you have to display this whole thing, else just return a null, right? So this will make a sense. Now we have already done this. Now we have to come to our home page. Okay, because the main logic processing happens here. Now we have to set up some of the variables, some of the states for our handles edit dialog things. So what we will say is edit dialog open. Okay, we are setting up the state. Okay, so to manage all these things. So let's copy this and paste it here, make this capital and say use state, and initially it is false. Okay, and second thing is we need to track that which book we are going to edit. So for that we will have another state. This is book to edit and set book edit. Okay, so we have to handle this also. Again, use a state of type book DTO. We will pass null. Book type, or it can be null. Okay, both values. Right now, what we are going to do is, now we need to on click of the this. Here we have added the on click, but we have to display the dialog box also. Okay, so for that we will have a JavaScript block here for displaying that thing. So to display that, we will say book to edit, which the book that we have to pass, and then we will just pass a component. So edit book component. So this has to be displayed. Now this component takes props. Okay, so it will take a book. So we will pass book to edit. This is the book to edit thing. Then it will take is open. So we will pass is edit dialog box. Then we will pass on close. So we will have a function for handle on close. Okay, we'll write a function for that, and on submit, that once we are submitting to the backend, what function we want to call, handle update book. Okay, so this will be an API call to the backend. So this is how we deal with the props. So from here we are basically calling it. So from the home page, when you click on it, the book object will come here. We will make this as true and we will call these functions. Okay, so these are the main objectives. And when the dialog opens, we just have to do, what we have to do is we just have to pass, or we have to just, the form will be there, the data will be populated, we just have to change the data that we want. We have to click on submit. As we click on submit button will get called. So this on submit button, when it will get called, it will take the form data that is required to update the book, and it will take a file. If the file is there, it will pass an undefined. Okay, and that it will pass to the home component. Home component has a handle update book method, which will be basically a API call. Okay, then we are calling on close. So on close is to close the dialog. So for that also we are having a handle on close. Right, so this is how we are going to handle it. Now let's handle each of them, each of the functions. Okay, so first thing is handle edit. Now in the handle edit, what we'll do, so handle edit is a function which we have to make when we click on the button. So as we click on the button edit, what we have to do is we have to do set book to edit as the current book. Okay, the book that we are getting from here, and set is edit dialog open as true. So the dialog opens here. Now when the dialog opens, we are doing some editing. So all those things are being handled here, right? Once we submit, we have to write the functions which will get called. So for them, so which functions are going to get called from here? So we have already defined, right? Handle update book. So this function is going to get called. So we will say const handle update book, and it will have two things. Updated book, we will have an updated book of type book DTO, and book cover file, it is an optional, so of type file. Okay, now simply we are going to handle this. Also we have something known as a handle on close. Okay, so what will be the functionality of this one? This doesn't return anything basically. So what we are going to do is we are set book to edit as null and set is dialog open as false. Simple. So these two functions are very easy. It is just to handle the state of the dialog. This is an important function. So what we have to do is we simply have to do the same, submit data and new form data. Now as I said, submit data dot append what you have to append. So here in the update book, if you see, we are adding, okay, we need a ISBN also, and we need this book to DTO JSON. So we will add this. We will add JSON dot stringify, and we will have updated book. If book cover file is there, then we will have submit data dot append file as book cover file. Okay, and then we have to call an update book method. So let's construct that method. Let's write the method basically. So we will say update book. We will make it async. Okay, so it will take a form data only, basically form data, and it will take an ISBN. So it is a number. Perfect. Now we will simply say return await axios dot put, and then we will call base URL slash API slash v1 slash books slash what we have update book. We have update book slash in dollar, again we will pass the ISP, okay, and comma form data. So this is how we have wrote this book service class also, right? Now simply we have to call this book service class here, update book. So update book is coming from this here. So now we are going to pass submit data. We are going to pass updated book dot ISBN updated book dot ISBN, and then we will have two things. Either we will get a successful response. So if we get a successful response, what we are going to do, first we are going to console this update book response equal to response, okay, and then we have to call the API for getting all the books. So here we have wrote this API inside the use effect directly. So let's define in another function, get books maybe. Okay, here we will define a function, or simply let's define a function like this, and let's put whole things here, okay, and get books will be passed here so that we can reuse it. Okay, that's the whole purpose. So we will say get books so that all the updated books, the information get updated, okay, and then we will say handle, and we will call the handle on close simply, so that our dialog closes, right? Then we will have catch block will have an error, and this error we will just console for now. So error updating book, we'll see what kind of error we are getting, if in case we are getting any error. This handle delete will also be the same like that, you'll see soon, because again in the handle delete also what we have to do is we have to create the props like that, and we have to do the same operation like that. Okay, so first let's save these things and let's see if the current functionality is working. So if I click on edit, as you can see our edit functionality is working. We have got this edit book and all these things. So suppose I want to, don't try to change it, the ISBN number should not get changed actually. So what we'll do is I'll just press cancel here. I'll go here in edit book, and I will probably remove this. Let's comment it out for now, or let's not comment it, let's make it read only, okay, because we don't want, because it's a primary key, so we don't want it to be changed. So if we do it, you see here we are not able to do anything, it's a read only field. Now here we can change whatever we want. Suppose you write brief of history time 2, or better revised edition, Stephen Hawking is fine. Book explains about the origin and fate of the universe from Newtonian to modern theories. Suppose I'm just adding like this, okay, to test it out. So rather than popular science, I'll just make it science. From 22.25, I'll make it 25.45. From quantity 100 to 1000. And if you want to choose another image, you can choose it. So I'll just select a new image, maybe the brief history of time. Let's select another image maybe. Okay, let's select this image. Fine. So I'll save this image. It will be a .png file. Save. Okay, and I'm going to select a new image. So if I select a new image, you have got a new image. If you click on save changes, it saves the changes. So to see the image, we can just come over here and we'll see here that our brief history of time here got changed. Okay, it has not got changed. Let me check once if we have got any error or what. Okay, some error we have got. So let's see what error we are getting. Request field with this, why we are getting the error. Let's see. Okay, this is the same error that you guys must be getting, some of you. This is the problem of Windows. can't do anything much. Let's restart the process. That's the only thing I can do. Let's see if it will get fixed or not, or I have to restart the whole application itself. I mean the IntelliJ IDEA. So let's close it, let's edit it, let's universe, and talks about new theories. Okay, we say revised edition, we'll change it to $30, we'll change it to 1000. Let's change the cover, let's change it to here. Okay, again the same issue is coming up. So the best way to handle this issue is stop the application, close it, and start it again. Yeah, this issue comes up in IntelliJ IDEA, that especially in Windows, if you're working with that, the process gets stuck up. So let's restart our application. So we have restarted our application here. Now let's go back, go here, let's refresh, edit. Last time I'm doing it, hopefully it should not do it again. Revised, just edit a dot and maybe something really to read, and change it to 30, change it to 1000. Image here, briefest of time, select the image, save the changes. Okay, it's failing again and again. Okay, let me figure out a solution for it. Okay, so the problem that we were facing is now resolved, and there is a workaround, you can say, at least for the Windows system. But because in the Windows there is a different way of handling all these system level processes, since we are storing files on the OS file system, right? So what I've done is I've added this code, a completable future code. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to run this copy process of file and here the delete process, both asynchronously. Okay, so that there is no exception coming up. So these copy things get executed as per our requirement, and delete will get executed once. So delete will be handled by a separate thread, right? Now the problem which we get in Windows is because the same main thread is trying to delete this, as well as here trying to upload the file and trying to all the things are being done by the main thread. But now since we are using completable feature and running our code asynchronously, so we don't get the blockage. Now if you see here, I have uploaded this file, a brief history of time dot, whereas this brief history of time .png, which was the previous file, right, it is still not deleted because the process is running asynchronously on ran by another thread. But the thing is that particular file is being locked by a system. Okay, so that's why it has not got deleted, and it is kind of a problem in Windows. But the main thing is, normally we don't, when we talk about uploading the files, downloading the files and all those things, so we use either third-party services like Cloudinary or DigitalOcean or AWS, right? So these are the services that we mostly use. Okay, so this project was just an example of how to do file upload and all these things. But this completable feature mostly is you can say I have used as a workaround for the Windows thing, because I have tested this code without a completable feature on Ubuntu and all. So there is no problem as such, right? So in Windows there is some kind of problem if you are directly dealing with the Windows operating system, its own file system. Okay, so it works a bit differently. So this is the way how you can edit the files. Okay, so now if you come here and see the image, so now this new file has been came. Okay, so edit functionality has been completed. Now there is next functionality known as delete functionality, right? So here we have delete left. So how do we do this handle delete function, right? So this one I'm giving you as an assignment. Okay, so I will push all this code into the Git, in my Git repo. Okay, and I'm not implementing currently the handle delete thing and all the delete thing. You try yourself. Now why I'm saying this, because you should get the hands on with your, so that you can develop the confidence in it. The delete is also same to it. Okay, you have to write a component like a delete book component. So let me do some boilerplate for you. So we will say delete book.tsx. Okay, and then we will say rfce. Okay, let's remove this. Now what we have to do is, the way you have implemented this edit book props, the same way you have to write all these delete book props. Okay, so I also be giving you this delete book props. Okay, just a minute. So we will write delete book props. The implementation is the thing that you have to do. So you will here also get a book, and it will be of type book DTO. Okay, and you will get is open, it will be of type boolean. On close, it will be void, it will return nothing. It will be a basically a function thing, and it will be also a call to a function. It will take an ISBN. That's it. So here you just need an ISBN, nothing else, and it will return nothing. Perfect. Now this much I'm giving you as an assignment. I have provided you with the delete book props. In the same way, the way we have used all these props here, and we have passed these props as an actions to this home page, and then here we have called it. Okay, so we will have something like here, like book to edit, we will have book to delete. Okay, so let me write this also for you. Okay, so what I will do is const book to delete. Okay, and set book to delete. Okay, and we will actually be using the same, so let's copy paste. Okay, this will be same, in fact this also will be same. So rather than is edit, you will say is delete dialog open. Here also just replace edit with delete. Okay, and now what you can do is simply write book to delete, and put your delete book comment. Okay, let it be self-closing. Now you have to pass all these 4 props into your delete book component, like we have passed here. If you see where it gone, okay, here like this, right? So you will pass like this, you will implement the logic, and this whole boilerplate I'm giving it to you as an assignment. So, and what you have to do in the pop-up, you just have to get a confirmation. If the user says yes, or if your button has a confirm button, then if it clicks on confirm, just call a function that will call a delete API. Okay, and even delete API, now 3 APIs we have written, 1 API is there for delete. If you go here, we have a 1 delete API. So you will write this delete API. It is very simple. It is just path variable, no form data, nothing, right? So this one I'm leaving for your assignment to do, right? So let's just make it like this. Okay, perfect. So all the major boilerplates I have written, there are logic, and there is a opportunity to write a API call in the book service for delete. So that you will write. Okay, and you will complete it. And in the comment section, you can also share your solutions, or you can write in the comment section that you have completed it. Okay, so this much code I will push, and later in the future, sometime I will, if there are lots of people who are able to do it, then I will also share my own code with you. Okay, so that's all we have achieved here. Now, seeing all this project, you may be thinking that okay, we have got very less, there is very less in this project, nothing bigger. So earlier my plan was to extend this a bit more, but now I will keep this project up to this only. The reason behind this was I wanted it to be an introductory project for you if you already know about Spring Boot and React. So this is the introductory project for you. We will work on some good project, a good level project in terms of complexity also, so and more functionality in future or in later videos that I have planned up. So for that, you have to wait for some time, that we will be coming up with such projects, and we will learn in depth about the full stack development and more advanced concepts in using Spring Boot and using React. Okay, so this was just an introductory project. You must have got some idea about it. So I just wanted to give you today the basic revision of it. Okay, so if we come to add book, what we have done is, we know that in our add book API, we need 2 things. There are 2 parts, basically the 2 parts of request. One is this JSON, and second is this file, which is optional. So the same thing we have done. We have separated out JSON, and we have handled the file and its preview. Okay, then we have handled the JSON thing, that what will happen if our form data is getting changed, the field if we are making the change, and what will happen if we are changing our files. So we are handling using this Second is when we are want to submit the data and when we want to add the book, then we are creating a form data, appending all these things and simply calling the API, right? So this was as simple as that. And these forms are also very simple. In every field we were attaching this name, value and on change, right? These three are important. Then in the home button, if you see, we have this edit and delete button. So for the edit, what we have done is we have said that on the click of button handle edit, thus we will get the book object, that particular book object, and we will open the dialog. Okay, and then after opening the dialog, so hey, once the dialog is open, it will have a form. So we have a form data to handle, we have a book, a file to handle, and we have a file preview to handle. And then the same thing we are doing as we were doing in the add book. Also, before this dialog opens, we have added a condition that this is open props should have a value passed as true. Only then we are going to open this book, else we are not going to open, right? So here also we are just populating the data that we are getting from here, this, as we are setting the book attribute, book object value here. So this same book object is being populated here with data. Then we make the changes, and then if you see here, we have a handle submit. Now this handle submit basically calls this on submit button, on submit function, and we are, since we, and when we pass this on submit function, what it do is, you can see here, while on submit is passed, we are calling this handle update book. This handle update book is simply doing that, creating an form data object and doing the same API calls that we have seen in the add book. Now coming to the delete book, you have to now implement all the things. I have given you the boilerplate for the delete book component. I have given you the interface for it and wrote a boilerplate here. Okay, so I hope that you have understood the concepts behind the complete full stack development, and also a small change here that we have added this completable feature. So this is basically for the Windows machine. For any operating system it will work definitely, but for Windows it is actually necessary, because in Windows the way the file system works is a bit different than Mac or Ubuntu or Linux based OS. And this is nothing but asynchronous code, a code run asynchronously by a separate thread. Okay, so this is the addition that we have done, right? Fine. So now our this project as a introductory full stack Spring Boot React project, we have completed this. Now moving forward, we are going to do a very good and very interesting project going forward, and hope you will learn from that also, but it will take some time before I come up with that. So this project is officially over up here, and now this series is also over. So I want you to go through the series multiple times, see it, the concepts behind it, and if there is any doubt, then you can post in the comments section. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this series. I hope you have learned a lot about how to build a full stack Spring Boot React project. Okay, so this was a bit of a modern approach that I have taken, though it is a bit very much introductory, so you may not have felt that much, but still we have taken a lot of approaches that will be helpful for you when you will be going to work in the industry, right? So with that, please do subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and press the like button if you are liking the project. Share it more and more. Press the like button, give your comments, because the more you do that, the more there is a motivation for me to make such amazing videos. So I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.